Hey fellow nerds and geeks, Aaron Nabus here, and on behalf of my co-host, Alex Benedicto, thank you so much for listening to the Hall H Show podcast, where it is our mission to shine the Hall H spotlight on artists. And when we say artists, we're talking about illustrators, writers, cosplayers, photographers, bloggers, podcasters, basically anyone creative within our comic book and pop culture universe. Now, on to the show. Hey there, fellow nerds and geeks. It's the Hall H Show, and I'm your host, Aaron Nabus. I'm joined by my co-host, Alex Benedicto. And on this special SDCC 2017 preview, we are joined by our contributor, Jason Lethert, who also runs his own site called herojournalism.com. Welcome to the show, Jason.
Thanks. Great to be back again.
Anyways, we are recording this at Skyline San Diego. It's a trade show marketing company that I used to work at. Jason still works here, and was cool enough to let us record here. So thank you, Jason.
You're welcome.
It's been a long last few days for me, doing a lot of freelance projects with work, and also preparing for San Diego Comic-Con. So I'm glad that Jason put some coffee on. So that's so cool. Got some coffee.
Yeah, we're kind of getting ready for the lack of sleep that we're going to be getting next week, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Over the next week, I should say. Continue.
So we're going to start off with the panels on this preview. There's a few things that I want to highlight. Obviously, it's Jack Kirby's centennial, so we will definitely put a focus on the Jack Kirby panels that they have at San Diego Comic-Con this year. Additionally, I'm sure a lot of our listeners are familiar with, hopefully, with Rob Sakowitz. He's been on Englishman in San Diego's YouTube live show, Cup of Tea SDCC, a few times, and we actually videotaped one of his panels at San Diego Comic Fest, the one that he was with David Glanzer. So he's going to have, 20 panels at San Diego Comic-Con. I'm just joking. But he does have a lot. So we'll be trying to go to as many of those as possible. But let's just get started with some of the panels that each of us are thinking about going to each day. Obviously, we'll start off with Thursday. Why don't you take it away, Jason?
There's a couple good panels. I think the Kirby coverage is going to be starting on Thursday. That's obviously going to be a big element of the con this year. If you're a con goer, regular con goer, at many of the cons, but I know at San Diego Comic-Con, they pretty much have a Kirby tribute every year. And in San Diego and in probably a couple of the other cons, it's run by Mark Evanier, comic historian, cartoon producer, and voice director and writer, and Jack Kirby, historian as well. And his panels are always just packed full of interesting elements of comic history. So I'm a big fan of the guy, and I kind of gravitate towards what he does anyways. Also, one of the things I like about that is I'm a history guy. And so when I go to con, I try to get a little bit of history out of it as well. I think a lot of people don't because they go for the new latest and greatest and, there's a Walking Dead.
Entertainment, just strictly entertainment.
Yeah.
Entertainment, not
exactly.
learning or history.
Exactly.
Or yeah.
And they're just going for also just what's the latest. And so that's one of the things I like to do. So I know that that was one of the cons. And I think the one on Thursday, if I remember correct, is the Mike Royer one.
Yeah,
there's probably more than one, actually. Right, okay. Yeah. So he's going to be doing Mike Royer. I was lucky enough to get a little time to talk with Mike Royer at San Diego Comic Fest this spring in February. And, the guy is so amazing to listen to. when I saw the next one coming up, I'm like, oh, I think I got to check that out. So that was on Thursday, one of my must-sees.
And the stories that he could tell.
Yeah. Oh, and he does. And he's such a character, and he'll make you laugh. He's just such an outrageous guy. He's a perfect storyteller. He's a guy that after spending 10 minutes with him, I'm like, I would love to just sit at lunch and listen to this guy tell stories. So yeah, totally.
Is that all you had for Thursday?
Thursday, my schedule isn't fully complete out yet, and also one of the things that I have is I'm kind of juggling multiple hats. I go as a fan, but I'm also going for my work as hero journalism. But in addition to that, I do some coverage for comic book resources. So my schedule is never fully complete until I get my assignments for them, because that's going to affect what I'm going to do. So I'm still kind of finalizing.
Okay. Alex?
Yeah, I was going to go to the Jack Kirby one, but there's so many this weekend. I might pass on this first one on Thursday, and I might just do the start off with DreamWorks Voltron, and that's going at the same time as Kirby one. But I think I'm going to see enough Kirby panels throughout the weekend that I'll probably skip this first one and do the Voltron. But after the Voltron one,
And that's for the Netflix cartoon, right?
Netflix
Gotcha.
cartoon. Yeah, and right after Voltron is Spotlight on Mike Royer.
Oh.
So I'm going to probably do that one back, those two back to back. And I guess in honor of Image Comics 20th anniversary, one of the co-founders is having a panel on 5 o'clock. 25 years of Rob Liefeld creations. So he's going to have a lot of his original artists and creators on that panel that he started.
So
with.
he's going to have some of the artists that he's worked with in the past, that type of
Yeah.
thing. Very cool. Very cool.
Let's see. Let me pull up. Oops, wrong one.
I'm, I've got a love-hate relationship with Rob Liefeld, which I think is a good way to do it, because most people either love him or hate him, and I think that people are a more complete picture. But it's so undeniable the impact that he had. But again, some of the criticisms are certainly valid. We're all flawed people and such. So I find him a fascinating character.
Yeah, I remember him saying at Amazing Las Vegas that for some reason he was the one who was picked on, like when Image first came out, because I guess at the time he was the youngest of the
Picked
group.
on by the other Image guys.
or as far as the general public in general. He says they
It's
always
kind of
pick on
it's
youngest
kind of ironic
too.
because he was sort of the impetus for them forming Image in the first place.
Oh yeah. And some of our guests he's going to have there is Dan Frega, Rat Michaels, Andy Park, excuse me, Todd Knock, Norm Ratman, and Art Thurbeau.
Tiber.
Tiber. Sorry. Excuse me.
Well, that's better than I used to say, Thibbert.
Yeah. So some of his original, crew back 25 years ago.
So you were saying that he was the impetus because unlike the other guys, he was actually creating characters, right? That's the difference.
Well, I think at the time he was.
Because I was thinking McFarlane.
Well, I remember reading something where he was sort of like, I think it was what panel was that? Name off some of the founders of Image Comics real quick.
Well,
Mark
for
Silvestri.
McFarlane and Eric Larson, it was strictly because of sales numbers. The books were selling because they were on them. But I'm wondering if for Liefeld was actually creating characters. Now, I'm not saying the other guys weren't creating characters, but that was a stronger issue with his contention is, I'm not just on the book X-Force. I created X-Force.
Right,
I created
right.
Cable, which is now one of your most popular characters.
Exactly.
Who's up on par with X-Men, and yet I'm still just a writer or artist for hire, rather.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the person that I'm trying to remember the guy.
Valentino.
Yeah. It was
Jim Valentino.
Yeah, he mentioned something about how, I guess back in the day, at the height of Liefeld's sort of popularity at the time, that they was sort of like they kind of used it as a way to galvanize everybody to sort of move Inform Image.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay. I got to talk to Jim Valentino at Comic Fest, too.
Oh,
I'm looking
sweet.
forward to putting together a video online for that soon. Anyways, continue, sir.
I think that was it for me for Thursday.
Okay. We had mentioned Rob Salkowitz earlier, and I'm going to be checking out his Celebrate 50 Years of Underground Comics with Dennis Kitchen panel that Rob's going to be hosting. So that should be pretty interesting. What else is on there? After that panel, I'll probably go to the IDW for Walt Simonson. That'd be pretty cool.
Simonson?
Simonson. I stand corrected.
I met Louise Simonson a couple of years ago at Con. Got a picture with her, and that was kind of fun because I got to ask her a couple questions about the creation of Apocalypse, which I was, as a 12-year-old, I think, collecting at the time or something. And it was just when I decided to quit collecting comic books because, you know, you're getting to be a teenager and all that. Anyways, lovely person. And Walt, I'd love to meet him. He's a great guy.
Yeah. And then after that, I'm going to probably check out the Image Comics Creating the Future for Comics. I guess it's going to feature Doug Wagner, Scotty Young, Kat Staggs, and Gail Simone. So that'd be pretty cool to check out. And then I might check out a panel, since I'm a graphic designer, it'd be kind of cool to check out Comics by Design. So basically the gist of it is about page design, you know, lettering, you know, what panelists do to bring out the best design. So that's going to feature Andrew Arnold, Fawn Lau, Gilbert Lazcano, Hillary Thompson, and it's going to be moderated by Abraham Reisman. So that looks pretty interesting to me. And then there's another panel. It's Be a Financial Superhero, even if you aren't Tony Stark or Bruce Wayne. Just the title by itself is what grabbed me. I thought that was pretty cool marketing right there. That should be a pretty cool panel. It's going to feature Sean Nissel, Steve Grady, Eric Atilano, Chris Newhan, and Eric Pennell, and also a person by the name of Alonzo Nunez. He's the founder of Little Fish Comic Book Studio here in San Diego, California. And it's going to be moderated by Karen Martin. And the last one I'm probably going to check out, let's see here. It's Publishers Weekly, Selling Comics to a Diverse Audience. It's going to feature Calvin Reed, Christopher Butcher, Terrence Irvins, and Jennifer Haynes. So those are the ones that I found most interesting on Thursday. About Friday, we got Alex.
Friday, one caught my eye was an inside look at Man at Arms Reforged.
I saw that
Their
one
YouTube channel that does replications of popular movie, TV, or video game weapons, and they're actual blacksmiths who recreate like the Kill Bill samurai sword. They did Thor's hammer and a bunch of other popular weapons from video games and pop culture. And they're gonna.
So it's not He-Man related.
No.
Speaking of He-Man, I mean, Man at Arms was my favorite character.
Yeah, that's what I thought I had to do with. I honestly, I hadn't read. I'm still absorbing the schedule, and I'm like, but like a flag went up. I'm like, oh, what's that? That sounds cool because I love Man at Arms. He was cool.
Yeah, so I love the videos, and people will probably hear what they have to say in real life. Another one is again Jack Kirby. So this time I'm going to check out the Friends and Family, Jack Kirby Friends and Family at 1:30 Friday. And the third one we'll probably see, since we did a last podcast was with a B-boy crew, I'm going to check out the hip hop and comics culture combining 6:30 on Friday.
Wow, that's cool. I'm sure the Not So Fresh podcast will be interested in your coverage of that.
Oh, yeah.
All right. I've got a couple of things I'm looking at. Again, I don't have my my schedules finalized, but one of the things was, I don't know if it might be a little hard to get into. I often shy away from ones that are going to be difficult because a lot of the topics I'm looking for aren't the most sought after, and so it doesn't bother me to stay in that territory. But one of the ones, Dave Gibbons, big fan of his art. I think, you know, it's cliche, but Watchmen, it's just that good. And I love his art style. It's been interesting if you're an Alan Moore fan to go through his oeuvre and kind of track the different art styles from the different art collaborators that he works with. It's really distinctive. It's really interesting. It's funny because it wouldn't be the way I would do it. I would probably, I mean, Dave Gibbons, for example, is a really, really good classical, and I might be pinning him down a little bit because I don't know the full breadth of his artistic capabilities. But if you look at what he did with Watchmen, it's just a very classical superhero, kind of almost like art style out of the 60s or something, just the clarity of it.
Well, before you go on,
go ahead. No,
what do you how do you feel about the Watchmen series
that's coming out?
Yeah,
I'm very excited. At Hero Journalism, you know, one of our, you know, focuses is the adaptation, and specifically, obviously, the adaptation of what we love, comic books. And I love the adaptation process. And I know that a lot of people, when something is going to happen to a beloved property, they get very nervous that it's going to not be perfect, and so they get very negative. And while I have those same concerns, I don't let that, in almost all cases, there'd be a few cases, okay, yeah, they shouldn't reboot Citizen Kane, you know, or Gone with the Wind or something. So there are cases where you'd, you know...
I mean, I don't know how I could listen to Rosebud any a different version of Rosebud. It'd be weird.
True that. Yeah, it wouldn't be a sled. It would be like, I don't know, rollerblades or something, or
Right.
you know, one of those shoes that the kids have with in the heel. So I think that I find it exciting, and it's HBO, I believe, right? That's going to be doing the Watchmen,
I can't recall.
the new series. I believe it's HBO. Because HBO was originally developing it with Zack Snyder a couple years ago, and I remember when this new thing that you just mentioned came out, they specifically said Zack Snyder does not appear to be the same project. It's still at HBO, but it's not Snyder. So HBO is known for its very high quality productions.
For sure.
I'm very excited. I loved the Watchmen movie. I know some people have mixed reviews to that. I think they're mistaken. I think that a lot of the things people complain about were things that you'd complain about in the book. It's just...
Well, being that it's such a period piece during the Cold War, I mean, are they going to keep to that, do you think? Or will they update it to like...
That's an interesting question because, you know, when you're dealing with TV, you're dealing with tighter budgets than if you have a movie. And period pieces can be very expensive. So that's an interesting question. I could see that they might forego that just out of, you know, financial reality. If they do, obviously that's going to put a lot of pressure on them to make up for it and make it still feel authentic. I think it could. It depends. If you're trying to tie it in with the movie as far as like, this is a prequel, which is the most likely thing. Obviously, it's not going to be a sequel. Then you have a little bit of a problem of, well, then it almost needs to be a period piece because that evokes that it happened before, that it's an earlier time in the characters' lives and histories. So I think that I think it kind of has to be a period piece, probably.
Mm. Cool. Well, I'm looking forward to it either way.
Yeah.
I guess I have to subscribe to HBO.
Right. Get that HBO Go.
We cut the cord, man.
I hear you. Me too. I've gone pretty much exclusively online, but now you can add, I believe, HBO.
Yeah, it's like a la carte. Yeah, a la carte. Yeah.
Right. Just like you do with your Hulu. In fact, for a long time, I watched TV exclusively out of my Xbox. Just watching off of YouTube, Vimeo ads, picking up Hulu, whatever the case is. Yeah.
So anything else on Friday that caught your eye?
Oh yeah, sure. There was one of the things I'm interested. I haven't checked out who's going to be there, but I immediately got my curiosity piqued with the Cartoon Legends and Game Changers Speak panel. Anything that can, again, give a little bit of history, especially in my forte, which is cartoons and adaptations, anything like that, which is kind of not as likely unless they're doing a historical thing. It's like most of the stuff's going to be focused on what's coming out new or what guests are available, and so sometimes, let me give you an example. When the schedule first came out, Alex, do you know what is going to be at the beginning of the day on Friday in room? Let's see here. Okay, I can't. Oh yeah, okay. Room 24 ABC, the first panel of the day. Are you familiar with that?
No.
Can you see it? This is an
Spider-Man?
audio. Yeah, could you read?
Spider-Man.
Could you read it back to me, or no one knows what we're talking about? Yeah, Marvel panel.
Friends.
Spider-Man is Amazing Friends. Well, don't go if you're assuming it's be covering the cartoon Spider-Man and his Amazing Friends from 1981 to 1984, because it has nothing to do with that. It's just borrowing the name. So I got all excited. I'm like, oh my God, they're doing a retro. No, it's just Axel Alonso or Joe Quesada or whomever from Marvel talking about the latest and greatest Marvel Spider-Man comic books.
Okay.
So that's just an example of the pitfalls when you're a classic guy like myself. But yeah, no, there is a couple others. You guys may know that in addition to Kirby's 100th birthday, another 100th birthday we have is
Will Eisner.
Exactly,
Yeah.
Will Eisner. And so there's a lot of coverage of him on that, and there's going to be a panel for Will in the morning of Friday. I'm thinking about trying to check that out. So there's a few. I was interested in the Young Justice.
Yeah.
I think that's a really, really, I'm really thrilled that Netflix has brought that back. I really lament the state of dramatic action cartoons, at least. Right now, if you didn't have cable and direct to DVD, it would be dead. And so, especially it's just so sad that DC Comics, with their own companies that have television shows or television networks that are broadcasting and stuff, they still can't keep their own shows on the air. It's just, especially a high quality show like that. They'll do the Teen Titans Go, which is, goofy. I mean, I don't want to, I'm not saying it's a bad show. It's just that
It's not Young Justice.
there you go. Right. It certainly wasn't the type of stuff that brought me to comics. I know there are a lot of comics that are of that tone, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I came for the drama and the action and that type of thing, and that's what I want out of my superhero cartoons. So really thrilled that Young Justice came back, and really excited about that.
I agree. And it's a good segue because Young Justice is the first panel that I'm going to be going to
Oh, nice.
on Friday at 10 o'clock. Let me just go into it really quick. Jason said it pretty succinctly. It's like drama, action, it had it all. It had teen angst, and all around it was just such a good show. I'm glad they're bringing it back. And the panel after that, I'm gonna check out Image Comics, Excellence in Storytelling, and then I'm gonna go to the Building a Geek brand and getting paid to do it. That looks pretty interesting.
Definitely. Good putting that on.
It's Tony Beacon, Crazy for Comic Con. He'll be on there. Good friend from Nerd Foo, Steve Araujo, Chris Gore from Film Threat.
Love Chris Gore.
Yeah, and Anna Mia. She's a professional cosplayer. So I'm definitely looking forward to that podcast. And then right after that, it's going to be Let's Get Fashionably Nerdy. Nerd fashion has been a buzz lately. There's a whole slew of companies out there who are trying to capitalize on nerdy fashion. So, mentioned Tony B. Kim earlier, Crazy for Comic Con. His fashion line, Hero Within, they're going to be on this panel as well. You got Camille Falciola, her universe. Excuse me if I butchered your name. Apologize. Jordan Ellis. Got Melly Lovio Sanchez from Maleficent and Geek Girl Gang. You have Jamie Cordero from Espionage Cosmetics, Tiffany Mink, Who's It's and What's It's, and Michael Powell, Suit Up, Geek Out, and it'll be moderated by Stephanie Pressman from Fashionably Nerdy. That should be an interesting panel. And then mentioned Rob Salkowitz earlier. His pop culture Shark Tank is going to be next at 3 o'clock. That's definitely going to be a panel that I'm going to be looking forward to checking out. If you guys have watched Shark Tank, it's basically the same premise.
But what, pitching actual comic books?
No, pitching sort of pop culture business ideas. So
whether it's a product or idea, yeah.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm. So I guess I can read another little description. Who will be the next breakout pop culture entrepreneur? Come here. Startups make their best 90-second pitches to our panel of industry experts: Ted Adams from IDW Entertainment, Susie Ryu from Atom Factory, and David Steinberger from Amazon Comixology, for valuable feedback, exposure, and maybe their big break. Pitch your own business idea if you dare. Moderated by Rob Salkowitz. So, if you guys aren't familiar with Rob Salkowitz, he's a writer for Forbes, and he wrote a book called Comic-Con and the Business of Pop Culture. He's really in tune with, the nexus of, business and pop culture. So, really knowledgeable about this stuff. And I always find him interesting when he's on, like, say, Leonard's Englishman in San Diego's show. So it's pretty cool. The next panel that I'm probably going to check out is Manga Superheroes, Super Differences Between Japan and the U.S. This one's interesting to me because, especially when I think I recently read an article where it talked about the rising popularity of Japanese manga and versus American comic books. And I think we had talked about this on the podcast with Not So Fresh podcast, where I said that a lot of people are switching over or being attracted to Japanese mangas because the way Japanese manga is set up is you have one solid creative team that's on the book for such a long time, versus American comic books where creative teams can switch out here and there, thereby sort of changing the flow of the story, character development. You have people who suddenly decide that Cap's going to be Hydra or something like that. So, I find this topic kind of interesting, and especially I'm all about being Asian, where East meets West. Mm-hmm. I like those little dichotomies, mm-hmm. And then 6:30, the last panel of the day that I'm probably going to check out is mobile filmmaking: how to make a movie using a smartphone. And both me and Alex attended this panel last year. It's run by a woman named Susan Botello. She's in charge of the Mobile Film Festival here in San Diego, which we were a part of this year, and we got to do a sort of red carpet podcast. So that's pretty interesting. But her panel last year really opened our eyes to the possibility of how technology's gone to a point where you can make pretty cool movies on your smartphone that can be shown on the big screen. It's like the technological barrier. It's less and less with every improvement on the smartphone. And what's cool about this is that her festival is really international. You have people from obviously from Canada or Australia, but you have places like Macedonia, Southeast Asia, Africa wanting to turn in projects. I think there was somebody who was holed up in Europe, sort of like political asylum, and they had turned in something. So,
wow.
I think he was a journalist. So, man, there's the technological barrier is so slim that people around the world are making projects, and I think that's like beautiful because it's like it's just opening up a whole new sort of medium for people to express their points of view. It's sort of like how soccer is, you know. It's like it doesn't really take much to play soccer. It's the ball and whatever.
right.
So it's sort of like soccer's sort of like the more universal.
Universal.
Yeah. So I think smartphones are sort of like that in my point of view.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really looking forward to that panel. I think Tracy, a hot nerd girl, and her Star Wars Steampunk Universe are going to be making an appearance as they did at the Mobile Film Festival, sort of adding some glitz to the occasion.
Sure.
So that should be fun. I guess we can go to Saturday. Ready, Alex?
Oh yeah, sure. Saturday looks like the first one again with the 25th anniversary of Image. I went with one of the co-founders is having a panel, 25 years of Top Cow, with Mark Silvestre and Hawkins, the president of Top Cow. And there's this at 11 o'clock, and you're gonna do a little talent. You're gonna talk about their talent search again, which they do every year. Next one, this one's gonna be look like a Jack Kirby day. I'm gonna do hopefully back-to-back Kirby panels. First one would be Jack Kirby's 100th birthday celebration with IDW, and I think Kevin Eastman is on that one.
Yeah, he's on there.
Yeah, and
And Walt Simonson.
And the one right after that is the centennial of the centennial of the King of Comics, Jack Kirby, and that one's was that the Arlen Schumer one?
That is the Arlen Schumer one.
Yeah, those were my top three for Saturday, and Saturdays has a boatload of awesome panels, which I'm gonna have to miss.
And Arlen Schumer is such a prolific historian when it comes to comic books, especially like Silver Age.
Yeah.
I mean, we were at San Diego Comic Fest, and his panel on Neil Adams was just mind blowing. It was really in depth. You know, I feel so bad because I was videotaping it, and then it had gone longer than I expected, and I ran out of space on my.
Oh,
So hopefully I can get this one on video.
that's the worst.
Yeah.
I absolutely.
Because
hate that.
it was like the last day, and it's like I was almost there, you know. So for me, Saturday, the first panel that I'm probably going to check out is called Comic-Con How To Show Your Story, Don't Tell It. This one looks pretty interesting.
Always good advice.
Yeah. It's going to be moderated, or actually the person on it is Maxwell Alexander Drake. He's an award-winning science fiction fantasy author. He's a graphic novelist and a playwright. So this one sounds interesting because, you know, I'm always sort of play with the idea of kind of creating and writing my own stuff. So this might help me get my ass in gear. Alex mentioned the 25 years of Top Cow Productions. That's going to be with Mark Silvestre and I think Matt Hawkins, you said, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that should be pretty cool.
That's Witchblade, right? That's Mark and Top Cow, right?
Yeah.
One of the things that always bugged me during the 90s animation boom was Cyberforce was supposed to get optioned, and I thought that one was really going to happen, and I really wanted to see that happen. I mean, eventually I'll get around to covering this on my channel.
Well,
but
this as an aside, I think Cyberforce, there's a sort of Korean manga adaptation of it. If you go to webtoons.com or something like that.
Animation adaptation?
Well, it's not animation.
Manga?
It's a manga.
Okay, got it, right.
Korean manga. I think they call it manhwa or something like that. But
Interesting.
yeah, so check it out. I think it's webtoons.com or webtoons.tv or something like that.
Okay.
But they have a whole slew of like online manga, and it's all free. You know, it's like there's some pretty badass ones on there too.
Cool.
Yeah. And then obviously, since it's a sort of a Jack Kirby focused Comic-Con, I had to decide between the the 2 o'clock centennial of the the King of Comics, Jack Kirby panel, and the Comic-Con How to Draw Your Imagination with Kim Jong-ji. I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, if Alex is going to go to the Jack Kirby one, I might have to go to the King Jong-ji one. So,
What are you expecting from that?
well, I mean, this guy's his claim to fame is basically like he'll start with a blank canvas, he'll start drawing something, and like not pencils but ink,
Just straight.
straight final, really.
Yeah.
Ink.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, his perspectives and his memory of, anatomy or just, vehicles, backgrounds, buildings.
Yeah, I
Just
guess.
straight from his head. No pre-sketch or anything.
That is nuts.
I mean, let me just read the quick description
Sure.
from the app. Take this amazing opportunity to learn how to draw the things in your imagination that words cannot describe using white paper with a black pen. You will realize that you do not need any fancy equipment to draw your heart out after seeing Kim Jong-ji's outrageous live drawing. You will get a chance to see an empty canvas transform into a completed scene with a human anatomy in perspective in just 90 minutes. Kim Jong-ji is an established artist from South Korea who has the ability to visualize drawing before making his marks.
Wow.
He has taught manhwa, I guess it is manhwa in Korea, arts at universities and private schools. So, yeah, man, that's completely badass.
It almost sounds like a bad way to teach people because, not everybody's going to have the talent to
Exactly.
do that. They should do it their normal way. But you said the Kirby one is on Saturday then, huh?
There's a couple of them.
Yeah. Couple back to back.
Yeah, 1 o'clock and 2 o'clock.
I might need to check those out. There's a couple that, well, it's not my turn yet. Go ahead.
No, okay.
Oh, hold on. Let me just finish mine out and I'll let Jason go. And then, obviously, if I go to the Kim Jong-ji one, I'm going to miss the 3 o'clock one that I had planned to go to, Developing Comics for Social Impact and Change. I'm all about all the diversity panels, so
Right.
I wanted to check that one out. And then there's this another one that looked pretty interesting. I was a fan of the Black Eyed Peas, back in the late 90s and early 2000s, like with the whole Bridging the Gap album. So turns out they have a comic book project. So
No way.
yeah, so it's called a Marvel Black Eyed Peas Masters of the Sun. So Will.i.am, Taboo, and Apple the App are going to be there.
No Fergie?
No Fergie, man. So this might be Bridging the Gap days, man.
It's that original group.
Yeah. So yeah, this is pretty cool. But I might have to miss that one. And then there's when comic shops, teachers, and librarians work together. Yeah, I think that's pretty cool. It's kind of cool that I think there's a growing movement to get comic books more into libraries. So this panel looks pretty interesting. And then let me see what else is there. Oh, another Rob Sakowitz panel is the Comics Entrepreneur Secrets. Rob's going to be on that panel with David Steinberger, Ted Adams. This guy I met before, Dinesh Shamandasani. He's a CEO of Valiant Entertainment, Valiant Comics. So he's a pretty cool guy. I might check out this panel as well. Then the last panel of the day that
Those other guys that you mentioned, they're founders of Comixology and IDW, right?
Yeah, correct. And then I mentioned
Not IDW, but IMDb. Sorry.
Ted Adams is IDW. Isn't that
I was thinking. I got IDW and IMDb.
Okay.
Mixed up. Sorry.
So the next panel is going to be cinematic storytelling for comics. There's a comic book out there that I have a few volumes of. It's by Stefan Frank from Iron Giant fame. And the comic book is called Silver. So this panel is going to be about how he's sort of taking his cinematic approaches and methodology and adapting it for the comic medium. So that's going to be pretty interesting. I attended this panel before at another convention, and it's really pretty cool because he kind of shows how perspective and points of view come into play, especially from a sort of cinematic or movie standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the last panel on Saturday for me. Did you want to chime in, Jason?
Well, like I said, I'm not completely set, but here's what I'm looking at. One of the things I do is I cross off stuff off my list too. So there's a bunch of stuff that I'm interested in that I'm definitely probably going to be skipping because it's probably a little bit too mainstream or popular. Um, a lot of the TV stuff they have sounds really cool. They have the new Star Trek Discovery show.
Mm-hmm.
Has a thing at 2:30, and then it's followed in the same location by Supergirl, Legends of Tomorrow, and the Flash, Arrow. Basically the whole CW lineup.
The Arrowverse.
Right, exactly. Which I think is pretty cool.
I like it. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm down with that. Flash is awesome.
Oh fuck yeah,
I
dude.
love Flash.
That's like my one. Those are the shows I kind of watch on a consistent basis.
It's kind of a good example of why sometimes television is better than movies. I mean, I look at Grant Gustin and I'm like, that is the Flash. I look at the Justice League Flash, Ezra Miller, and I'm like, that I don't know who that guy is, but whatever. So there's a lot of other stuff like that that I'm like probably just going to avoid, even though the context was good. You know, there's a Westworld thing. There's the Orville. Westworld, of course, the big sci-fi show on HBO or Showtime that's become a hit off of the old property. The Orville, hoping that it's really good. I'm a little bit worried about it, as many people are, but Seth MacFarlane's pretty good, and we're hoping that Galaxy Quest formula strikes again. But ones that I am going to be trying to make, assuming my schedule will permit, I'm actually kind of interested to see what the Sid and Marty Krofft panel is, because if you're, of a certain age, you definitely grew up partially on, exposure to Puffin stuff and all that stuff, Bugaloos and all the weirdness that the Krofft productions would do. And I find that kind of interesting, especially from a historical basis. So that's something that I'm definitely going to be looking for. I think there's the Kirby panel I might be able to take. That's at 1 p.m. So that's something I'm going to be shooting for as well. And
I'll save you a seat.
All right, awesome. But it's going to be a busy Saturday no matter what. No matter how that stuff shakes out for me, it's going to be running around from room to room.
Actually, I want to add another one I forgot to mention for Saturday is there's a panel called 1987, the greatest geek year ever.
Wow.
So they're gonna have some movies that came out was Predator, The Princess Bride, Lethal Weapon, The Lost Boys, RoboCop, Near Dark, Spaceballs, Hellraiser,
They might have a point there.
The Untouchables, The Running Man, and they said there's many more. So that one might have to.
That must
try to
be
make
the
that one
year of
after
Arnold
the trip.
Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt.
That one looks interesting. So maybe, or most likely, I want to try.
That
to check
was an
that one
insane year, though.
out. Oh yeah,
Cool. You might as well just continue to Sunday, Alex.
Sunday. Let's see. Sunday's Family Day, right? So I'm gonna check out the Cartoon Voices at 11:30. That one's moderated by Mark Evanier, as usual.
Yeah, I like those panels. The voice talent panels.
Because that's seems like that's a real big thing lately is the voice actors.
Did it say who's going to be on that panel?
Let me
Like which voice
pull it up
actors?
real quick.
The guy who plays Hulk is always funny.
Yeah.
Fred Tessitore.
Yeah, that's him. That's him.
Tessitore? Yeah, he's good.
Oops. Here it is.
God, he was so good in Avengers, Earth's Mightiest Heroes, before they changed it to Avengers Assemble, which just, basically made the character designs less cool and the show a lot more juvenile as far as its humor approach and such. But if you can get around that, it's still a pretty good cartoon. But Earth's Mightiest Heroes just like hit on all cylinders, and he was great as the Hulk. I mean, he's still good. They kept him, even though they revamped the show. Mm-hmm. They kept him on as voice of the Hulk, and he's still good in the new show, even though the dialogue is a little bit more uneven.
Let's see. see, Mark Evanier is the moderator. Neil Kaplan from Transformers and Voltron. Nikki Brayer, Family Guy and American Dad. Bob Joels, Puss in Boots, SpongeBob SquarePants. Deborah Wilson from Mad TV and Family Guy. And Chuck McCann from Fantastic Four and DuckTales.
Cool.
And probably someone else.
You know,
Oh, that's what
you
it
said
says.
Puss in Boots, but like, I was surprised how much I liked that with the Antonio Banderas. I didn't think I'd like it, but it was pretty cool actually.
Yeah, I get to interview Chuck McCann a few years ago at Comic-Con. I'm gonna have to dig up that footage. A lot of my old footage has been kind of archived. It's on old media, and I've got to update it. It's like on HD mini DV tapes, if you can believe that. And but that was great. Chuck McCann is so awesome, and he's done so much. So whatever you like, there's a little bit of Chuck McCann in your life, if you're old enough, especially, because obviously now he's doesn't appear in as much. But God, he used to be in everything. He was in commercials, sitcoms, movies, cartoon voice work. I mean, just one of those amazing lifelong entertainers and
You know
performers.
somebody that you need to interview before it's too late is Peter Cullen.
Oh, Optimus Prime. Yeah, no doubt. And Venger from Dungeons and Dragons. If you ever
Oh,
watched that
snap.
cartoon, he played the bad guy. Yeah, oh man. You know, it's so funny when you think back to when the first Transformers movie came out, the live action ones. They weren't gonna get Peter Cullen or any. I don't know if they got any of the other voices, but they did use him, and they weren't gonna do that. And I think they decided on a lark to do an audition. Kind of funny that he had to audition for it, but to do an audition to see what it was like, and they're like, "Oh wow, this guy's actually good. We just thought he was one of those TV voice actors." That's it's so funny the rivalry or the lack of I guess the classism, the caste system of Hollywood. Oh, it's TV. Oh, it's even worse than TV. It's cartoon TV. And that is such. I mean, those movies are so terrible, but when I hear him as Optimus Prime, I'm like, oh, at least we got that.
What else you got going on Sunday?
Sunday, Image Comics, your new favorite series. So since it's their 25th anniversary, this one is actually talking about future titles that are coming out. So it'll be interesting what they have in store. And right after, in the same room right after, is Will Eisner at 100, the real world of publishing comics. So in honor of Will Eisner and his centennial birthday, and check that one out.
Cool. I guess for me, my first panel on Sunday is going to be the annual Jack Kirby tribute panel. Jim
The
Chadwick.
normal one, not the 100. That's the one that they have every year. That's awesome. They're still doing just the normal one. Awesome.
Yeah. Well, because I have a feeling I'm going to miss Mike Royer's panel, so I got to get my Mike Royer fix on this panel.
Right.
So, Jim Chadwick he's an editor at DC Comics. Paul Levitz is a former president at DC Comics. Mike Royer, Kirby's favorite inker. Attorney Paul S. Levine, and I guess some other surprise guests are probably going to show up, and it's obviously hosted by Mark Evanier, usually anyway. So I'm looking forward to this one to start off my day on Sunday. And then there's another panel called A Conversation About Inclusivity and Diversity in Comics and the Comics Market. This one looks pretty interesting. Next one is going to be our good friend Brian Tillman. He's an artist based out of Baltimore. His Comic-Con How-To, Proper Pitching and Self-Promotion.
I saw that one. That sounded very interesting. I might join you on that. It just depends on how the day shakes out.
Yeah. He's such a good presenter. He just riles up the crowd, and his energy is infectious. After hearing that panel, you just want to create something and
Nice.
Get started and execute. So I'm looking forward to that panel. And then the last panel, usually at the end of the day, I'll go to the talkback panel for Comic-Con. But I think I sort of interacted with this person on social media. She goes by Dr. Zhivago. I guess she's a cartoonist and author. She's gonna have her own panel at Comic Con, so I kind of thought I'd check it out. So basically, her panel is how cartoons inspire the next generation Z kids. So it's kind of cool how how the next generation is going to be and how they're sort of going to embrace our comic books and whatever goes along with that. So this looks pretty interesting.
She's from San Diego.
She's from San Diego. So I'm also angling for a future podcast guest as well.
Yeah, nice.
So, all right. So there's the panels. Anything else you guys want to add to the panels?
Well, I'll do mine if that's
Sure.
okay.
Yeah, go for it.
No, I actually Sunday, I've even got less of a schedule because Sunday is kind of my catch-all day where stuff that I couldn't get to, I do. And specifically, one of the things I'm trying to get interviews a lot of the times, and so it's often that won't work, but I'll be here till Sunday, and so a lot of times I'm going to try to catch up on that stuff. And even if I've got panel plans, sometimes they'll fall by the wayside. But one thing I wanted to mention to you was because I think you mentioned the cartoon voices panel. There's actually two of those.
Yeah, there's one on
Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, I just wanted to mention that because I think I noticed that the one on Saturday looked like it conflicted with one of the ones Mark Evanier would do, and so I was like, that can't be right that he's not doing the voice.
Usually the voice one follows his other panel, the Quick Draw panel.
Well, I noticed that on Sunday he's got. I assume he's doing the annual Jack Kirby tribute Sunday morning, and right after that is Cartoon Voices. So I figured those were probably both Evanier joints. Is that what you're?
Well, wait, did it precede Quick Draw or was it usually after?
I think it was after.
Yeah,
Okay.
that makes sense. That makes sense. That sounds. I mean, that sounds like
It might be
the
different
past,
this year,
yeah.
but usually Quick Draw and the Cartoon Voices follow each
Yeah,
other.
you're right. You're right. They are. So he might be doing both of them.
Okay, yeah.
Who knows?
Is Quick Draw in there? Because I totally
yeah,
missed it.
It's
Okay.
Saturday at. I can't get my time.
Oh, I don't know why I didn't write that down.
Yeah, Saturday.
Totally missed that one.
But we'll be
1
talking.
o'clock in CBCF.
Interestingly enough, we'll be talking a little bit about Comic Con tips later. But one tip that we like to do is Quick Draw and Cartoon Voices because they're both in the same room. They're both hosted by Mark Evanier, and it's a good way to just rest your feet for a couple hours.
And they're usually fairly easy to get into, aren't they?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like they're empty,
No.
but they're not standing room only, and so they're kind of like reliable. I consider those panels reliable because you're not going to waste your time walking across the compound just to find out you're not going to get in.
Right, exactly. And they got monitors set up, so there's not really any bad seats in that hall. Obviously, if you want to sit up close, it's even better. But still, you can still see the action because they have overhead projectors, especially with Quick Draw, showing them what they're drawing and everything. And usually they have Sergio Aragonés and Scott Shaw. We've been in a few with Floyd Norman. If you guys have watched,
Have you seen anything with Floyd at Con this year?
not this year, I didn't see anything.
Yeah.
With his name on it.
See, I was bummed I missed him at Comic Fest. I was hoping he'd be here, even though it'd probably be harder to talk to him here. I really missed the opportunity at Comic Fest. Well, hopefully, maybe he'll do next Comic Fest.
Yeah, hopefully. Alex, you have anything else to add?
I think that's it.
Cool. I guess we can go to some of the exhibitors that we're gonna want to check out. Jason, you want to go first?
Well, I always try to hit some of the basics. I always try to hit some of the main, superhero guys. I'm gonna, try to at least stop into Marvel and DC and see what they've got, especially see what types of props and physical material they got out. One of the things I'm gonna try to do is make a big push this year to go to physical events. So, like last year, you might remember that they had that Walking Dead kind of like space that was like kind of recreating like a scene from the show.
Yeah.
And that was cool. I love that. And I loved how you, I don't know if you guys did it, but they had a thing where they had a mock-up of an airplane. This might have been 2 years ago. So if so, apologies if I'm misrecollecting. But they had a mock-up of a airplane, and you go and you sit in it, and it had a couple of dead mannequins next to you, but then there are a couple of people in zombie makeup behind you, and like there's a zombie outbreak on this airplane or whatever, and you get your picture taken with them. But I had a video camera, so I got a picture of them like pretending to kill me, and I'm screaming. And
Was that part of The Walking Dead?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, no, it was because it was right next to that where the Winnebago was out and everything, and they had the really lifelike mannequins.
That's probably part of the Fear the Walking Dead webisodes. That's only on their website. That's cool. I missed that one.
So I'm gonna look for one of the things from a couple years ago. I really wanted to do. My cousin did it. Because I have some family from Minnesota that comes down for Comic-Con. They're really hardcore. They're expert cosplayers. The entire family, the 2 daughters and the parents. And one of the daughters did the Vikings, which was like you got to pretend to behead someone or something, and they had this like fake blood that sprays you down, and they film it, and it's a video clip that you can go download online later on or whatever. And that was so cool. I'm like, of course, I suppose you got to worry about what you're wearing if it's the fake blood's gonna stain your clothes. But it's like that was so cool. So I want to try to do some of that stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. Alex?
I think a lot of exhibitors I'm going to check out is the ones you're going to mention. But I think the main one is check out a couple of guys that I went to junior high and high school with. Is at booth 1943, Bobby Rubio and Alcatraz High and Foregone Conclusion. And sharing a booth with him is his buddy from junior high is Keithan Jones, the owner and founder of Kid Comics, and he's coming out with issue 3 of his creator-owned Power Knights. So go check him out, booth 1943. Exhibitors, I always try to scope out the whole exhibit floor and just try to find new creators, new book titles, some independent creators. So just go out there and explore and, hit up the main ones, DC, Marvel, Sideshow. But also, scope out some the other independent creators that need more exposure, need more, fan base that's harder for them to build.
People with tables. That's a good rule of thumb. Mm-hmm. They got a table at the front of their booth space. Obviously Artist Alley is just tables, but even those other sections that are on the other side of the con.
Small press.
Yeah, small press sections and stuff like that. I always try to go through those, and it's funny because I've got my own taste, so not everything's going to appeal to you, so you don't have to go through there expecting that you're going to be motivated to stop and buy something or whatever. But you give that stuff a shot because the variety and uniqueness and weirdity of so much of it is just so striking that at the very least you'll be glad that you glanced at it and might think about it down the road, even if it's not something you're going to follow up on and buy just because the concept sold you right away. It could, though. Yeah.
That's what I do is a lot of times, they have the small press people who are pushing their stuff and they just kind of stand there and just look at you. And they have the other ones that, are really, really hustling and say, hey, you want to hear my story in my book? And even though I might not like the artwork or whatever, I still give them a chance and let them do this spiel on me. So, and sometimes, just from hearing them, I'll buy it.
Alex, you might be interested in a video I hope to get up later this year. I have a story from, again, it would have been last year, the year before Comic-Con, where one of those exhibitors gave me their pitch, and I said, okay, let's do this, and sat for the pitch until at a certain point I had to disengage because it was going on 5 minutes, and I could tell it was going to result in me spending money, and I had to get out of there. But the pitch was from the Scientology booth. Now, I have a special fascination with Scientology. I feel bad for saying this, but I do. I think it's very interesting, and I don't want to offend anyone's political beliefs, or I'm sorry, religious beliefs, or maybe that's a Freudian slip. It is more political than religious, but it's very fascinating in its own right. But let's not go into that part because that's gets a little farther away from what this podcast is about. But let me bring it home to what this podcast is about. I am fascinated by failure as well as success. And, I read some interesting quotes. You guys are Venture Brother fans, right?
I've seen a few episodes.
Oh, my effing God. You have to watch that show, dude. You know what it is? Are you guys Rick and Morty fans?
No.
Oh,
I haven't seen it
I'm
yet.
leaving this podcast right now.
Too bad, Joel. Too bad, Joel.
Give us your spiel.
I was gonna say it's Rick and Morty for the hardcore fans because Rick and Morty is great. You mentioned Galaxy Quest earlier today. I think that was before the podcast started, but then it came up when I mentioned the Orville. And you like that, right?
Yeah, that's good.
It's a fusion of that source material, comic-y style mythology, or with Rick and Morty, a lot of it's maybe more sci-fi, but really both of those it's any genre stuff. There's going to be little bits they pull from horror, sci-fi, Star Wars, whatever. But that fusion of the source material, but then satire of the source material. I almost have a problem calling them comedies. Excuse me, because I feel like that undersells it. It's not. Because the nerdy parts of it are as entertaining as the humor parts of it. But Rick and Morty has found a huge mainstream success, and I think it's a little bit more accessible for both the hardcore nerd and the kind of casual person who may not consider themselves a nerd, but they certainly watch the Spider-Man or Iron Man movies, so they're palatable to that types of material. With Venture Brothers, it's a little bit more hardcore, and because there's so much from the comic books, specific characters that are parodied, like a Thor parody, so I think that's one of the reasons why. Because I was lamenting the fact that Venture Brothers, never got as popular. It got popular and everything, and what could have been a one and done show, one season and gone, has kept going on, but it's taken a while to get them out. Meanwhile, Rick and Morty is a sensation. I mean, they're scrambling to get new episodes on the air. It's like the network, you can't make them fast enough. What do we got to pay you? So I was kind of a little bit bummed about that, but I love both of those things, and both of those shows are fabulous. But the Venture Brothers is, if you like Marvel and DC, you have to watch this show. You absolutely have to watch this show because there's so much satire in Marvel and DC continuity, down to, the villain is kind of like a Doctor Doom, but then he's also got his, like Hydra team, but it's all butterfly based instead of snake based. I mean, it's just brilliant. It's brilliant.
Basically, it's like more of an adult version of Johnny Quest, right?
Yeah. Well, yes. When the show first started out, it was more aptly described as, kind of what I just described it, but more towards Hanna-Barbera cartoons, specifically Johnny Quest, and to an extent even Scooby-Doo. Because the brothers are kind of also a little bit of, Fred, and they're not mature like that, but there's elements of Mystery Machine types of stuff and the group of kids or whatever. But yeah, there's some very strong parallels with Johnny Quest. Johnny Quest actually appears in it, because they can get away with this because it's Warner Brothers, it's Cartoon Network or whatever, Adult Swim. And so they actually, I don't know if I think they named him Johnny, but there's a few others where they don't really name him, but the 6 million, a facsimile of the $6 Million Man shows up with the red jumpsuit from the old TV show, and he shows up with the Bigfoot monster
snap.
that Andre the Giant played in the TV show.
I'm gonna have to look this up, man.
Dude, there's so many little bits of pop culture history that they just I mean, kill it. It's just so awesome.
So Rick and Morty is sort of on the same vein.
Right, exactly. Rick and Morty started out specifically as a spoof of Back to the Future. I don't know if you've heard this.
Okay, looking at their images and stuff, I see that now.
Right. And there's a story on YouTube of Justin Roiland explaining how this came about, and it's brilliant. I actually started writing it up as a bit a while back. He had gotten in trouble for doing a parody of licensed characters, and so as a joke, he decided to do a cartoon that was specifically designed to piss off the copyright lawyers. So he did. Rick and Morty was originally Doc and Marty. Right?
Yeah.
Guess what the name of the first cartoon? It's a really rudimentary cartoon. There's almost no actual animation or whatever, but guess what the name of his first cartoon was? The unofficial one that he did by himself before it went to, it was called like the officially recognized adaptation of the further adventures of Doc and Marty from Back to the Future by Warner Brothers Pictures. Every possible thing that he could do to make a copyright lawyer hair on fire, he did it or whatever. And then he ended up, saying, "Oh, screw this! I'm actually having fun with this, and so I'm gonna change it just so that I don't have the copyright issues, and go ahead and make it." And then that's when he got partnered with Dan Harmon from Community. Oh, okay. Yeah, Community, mm-hmm. Right? Yeah, I was Parks and Rec and Community are so similar, but so those have to be on your must list as a. I feel like any true comic fan needs to do Venture Brothers, because there's so much in there that'll just tickle your funny bone.
So are there any other exhibitors you want to check out?
Yeah, I want to. I'll tell you one thing about exhibits, which is, I don't know if this is something separate that we're going to, because this is just like stuff that I want to do is. I had mentioned I want to do experiential things. Like from a couple of years ago, they had that really cool alien egg from the movie Aliens, but it was like super huge. I don't know if you remember that. It was promoting the new Alien computer and Xbox and PS4 game, Alien Isolation. Have you heard of that? Mm-mm. It's supposed to be freaking awesome. I haven't gotten around to playing it yet, but it's definitely something I will do.
It was a gaming company that had the booth, right?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah,
in far west side.
Yes, exactly. Okay. It's a game where you're. It's like a first-person shooter, except it's not much of a shooter. Most of it is like you're a character in the movie who's just scared shitless and trying to get away from the alien, and so it's like. You're hiding under tables, and all of a sudden you hear alien noises, and you see a tail, through the doorway or what, and you're like, it's a really cool concept. So they had a really cool setup for that. They had that. I think it was the same year they had a house for a fake house, or like it looked like a complete real house built on the floor, and it was. I think it was for like maybe Resident Evil. It was another one of those video game franchises. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I'm really excited. I remember a few years ago I did the Ender's Game experience. I don't know if you guys ever saw that movie or remember that. And one of the things I heard that they're going to be doing this year that's not going to be on the floor, but and maybe even outside the con, is the Blade Runner 2049 experience.
Oh, yeah.
And I am almost peeing my pants about that because if you have been to my channel, we just started Hero Journalism a week and a half ago, but the first video we did was the Blade Runner Trailer 2 breakdown, and one of the key issues that I was really worried about. Oh, okay. Alex, you just showed me a picture
that was from yesterday. I took pictures.
Oh, yeah. Awesome. And that's okay. If you go to the Hall H
Twitter.
Pardon?
Twitter.
If you go to their Twitter feed, he's got some pictures of them, and it looks like, is it still being constructed at the time?
The tent was up. they still had some work still being done inside. So,
Yeah.
but it was hard to see inside. So,
Oh, okay. Of course.
yeah.
I'm sure they're going to keep it close to their vest. But I am really, really jazzed about that. I'm a huge fan of the movie, and I'm in the process of doing some really deep research on the movie. In fact, I'm kind of excited when I get home after the podcast today. I may even have my new Blade Runner book that has arrived,
Oh, wow.
Future Noir, the making of Blade Runner, kind of what I've heard is the definitive tome reviewing that. And I've got actually a lot of Blade Runner content that I'm planning on doing, a lot of deep analysis, a lot of really heady looking at, some of the concepts of the movie, some of the fan arguments. I mean, I think that, and debates, and the whole replicant theory, which, you guys we're talking about Blade Runner, if you guys might know what that is. And I've already posted some of it online, I've already been discussing it a little bit online when I posted that trailer review. And man, the response among Blade Runner fans is so interesting, because people just have, that's just a testament to how amazing this movie is. It evokes these responses where people, you talk about that theory and people get angry, people get, happy. They've come up with counter theories that are just, amazingly out there, I've had several people come up to me and said, well, have you ever thought maybe they're all replicants? and it sounds funny, but this is not a strange or rare thing. I've seen several people bring up the concept of, well, maybe multiple ones are replicants. So I find the source material so ripe for discussion and analysis. I've got a lot planned for it for the channel, and I'm really excited to see what the experience is like at Comic-Con.
yeah, that's a big tent they have out there.
That did look pretty huge. Do you know where it is? Is that over by
on
the
Front Street, right next to? I think Vikings had a thing there a couple years back, right across from the Marriott.
Gotcha.
Where
Okay.
the twin condo towers are.
Oh, sure.
Right next to
Okay.
it,
So and that's where Enders was, and
they had the
kinda
Powerpuff Girl.
where that
Yeah,
there's the
Enders,
grass is
exactly.
and everything, that real open area there. Sure. Okay. That's that makes sense. That's kind of the prime, if you got something small enough that it doesn't need to be in the parking lot over by on the other side of Petco or whatever, that's kind of the prime spot. That's where they had from, I don't know if you remember years ago, what was the name of that movie? Battle Los Angeles or Battlefield Los Angeles or
Battle LA was about.
LA? Yeah. But it was one of those alien invasion movies or whatever. It's so hard to get that title because it's like, is that a video game or is that a movie? Because it's like there's been so many Battlefield video games. It's like, but that was a great setup they had. You're walking down that path right on that mall that you mentioned where the Blade Runner is, and they had all those hollowed out helicopters and Jeeps that were all destroyed, looking smoldering like they were on fire and stuff. And it was like there'd been a huge battle there. That's the kind of stuff that I love, when you see stuff that really brings you into that the movie or the experience or whatever. So that's a prime spot. I'm looking forward to it. Also, I think it's going to be where Tin Fish is. I'm not sure because I haven't checked the location, but the Tick experience.
Oh, that's right next. It was right behind the Blade Runner experience, right behind the Tick.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of the same area. So is that
exactly.
the Tin Fish? Because
Tin Fish is different. If you go on our Twitter feed, there's some pictures of this is what's going on in Tin Fish. I don't know. Maybe it's NBC who's doing something over there.
Yeah.
They just had scaffolding up, so I couldn't tell what they were doing. But here's pictures of the Tick takeover. It's right.
Oh,
it's right
okay.
in front.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I got some promo materials from the Tick people, and so I looked at an image and I thought maybe it was the Tin Fish, because that's one of the cool things for me is to see who's going to be at Tin Fish. Is it always the same, or maybe now the same people who are in front of Tin Fish as take over Tin Fish? Because that's where they had the Green Hornet the Green Hornet car out there in front of Tin Fish when that movie came out. When the Blacklist came out, they had a thing in front of there, but I think they also skinned the entire Tin Fish as Blacklist. So I think those might be like a one purchase deal.
Yeah.
If you want the space out in front, then you also brand the entire restaurant or whatever. But it's just for several years, there's always been something very interesting for me personally in that spot. So I kind of always, want to check it out.
Yeah.
So those are really the some of the things that I'm really excited to do as far as experiences that I want to hit before I leave on Sunday.
You're gonna do the Viking funeral?
No, I didn't know about that. What's that?
They're gonna
From
do
the TV show Vikings?
TV show
No way. Are they going to
Yeah,
launch a dirge
they're
on
gonna-
in the bay?
somewhere. Yeah, I didn't read the whole article, but looks like they're gonna burn the ship. We'll see how it goes.
Oh heck, California Coast Commission. What are they going to say about that? We'll never get that convention center expansion now.
You're not going to go check out, did you watch Voltron? You a Voltron fan?
I am a big Voltron fan. I've only caught a little bits of the show though.
Well, I think they're having Hunk's like food truck.
No way,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
But I think they're having, if you watch the show, he was sort of like working at that alien sort of restaurant, and it's like this green goop. I think that he was serving. So I think they're serving green goop or
Nice.
something like that. So
Nice.
I think that's gonna be at probably Petco or something like that.
Cool.
Yeah, I think it's in conjunction with Nerdist.
Very nice.
Cool. Anything else you guys want to add to?
We're exhibitors, right?
Yeah.
I
Okay.
guess-
I guess I'll
Do
go through
yours,
my
yeah.
list. Alex mentioned Bobby and Keithan, so we're excited to pay them a visit and do some promo videos with them on preview night. One person that was on our podcast, they were on the show to promote their comic book, Jupiter Jet. That person goes, his name is Jason Inman. Him and his wife, Ashley Victoria Robinson, they created Jupiter Jet. Jason Inman released his schedule, his appearance schedule at Comic-Con, and he's going to be at the Ashen Lab. It's booth number 2006, so he's going to have a Jupiter Jet signing there. So we're going to try and visit him there and get some books signed by him. That'd be pretty cool to say hi. Stranger Comics, we're big fans of Stranger Comics. They can be at booth 2302. Dark Planet, mentioned Stefan Frank earlier, the creator of Silver. That's his company, Dark Planet, booth 2204. And obviously Tony Kim, Crazy for Comic-Con, his Hero Within booth. They're going to be at it's booth number 1019. Looking forward to chatting with him and catching up. Another guest of the podcast, artist Eric Nienoltowski, is going to be in small press at Q01. And then the Funko booth, they're booth 4341 and I guess 4347. I don't plan. What was that?
Sorry, 5347.
Yeah, 5347. Yeah, 5347. And I don't plan on buying any Funkos, but I'm just going there to say hi to Sully from Nerd Foo. But who knows? Maybe I'll buy Funko. We'll see. I haven't started yet. And then Little Fish Comic Book Studio. They're, I believe, is that small press too? I03.
Looks like it.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I03 and pay them a
Either
visit.
small press or it's right next to small press. I forgot what the section's
Of
called.
course, a big draw for Comic-Con is this fact that stuff from so far away is coming to your front door, but it's always good to try and support the local guys.
Oh,
and
yeah.
of course, that's a San Diego local comic studio, so that's great.
Yeah. Guy who's been on our podcast before, Matt Dunford. He's involved with Little Fish Comic Book Studio, along with Alonso Nunez, who's the founder. So I'm looking forward to saying hi to them. NASA, it seems like NASA is becoming more of a prominent figure at Comic-Con. So I want to try and pass by NASA and see if we can, maybe get a short little interview with some of the people that are working there. They're going to be at booth 2546. And for anybody that knows me, knows that I'm a big Street Fighter video game fan. I remember going through different arcades, up and down California, just playing Street Fighter back in like the 90s.
Oh yeah, it's the 25th anniversary.
Yeah, 25th anniversary,
right?
Well, I want to go. Yeah, they do have a panel, but also I'm going to check out the Capcom booth as well. Their booth number, I guess, 215. So those are pretty much the exhibitors that I want to check out for sure. I mean, there's so many exhibitors out there that once we walk up and down the aisles, I'm sure something will catch our eye.
I'm a gamer, but I don't really go for the gaming. But I tell you one thing, the gaming booths are always interesting because they got a lot of cool stuff going on, and obviously there's people playing games and screens and stuff. And so I always try to check in and see if they got anything superhero related. I don't know if you have ever played superhero games, but I gotta eventually I'll be covering this on the channel. But like movies, most of the history of comic books, their adaptations into video games have been pretty crappy. So
I remember playing the Superman game long time ago. It's like an 80s version.
On what system?
I think it might have been Atari or NES maybe.
Oh yeah, you talk. Well, yeah, that's otherwise known as the first superhero game of all time, I think. Because that came out before really computer gaming was anything.
Yeah, I remember they had one Superman that was a regular Superman, but they had another Superman that was like red and white and yellow or something like that, almost like Shazam colors. but
in the game,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot why, but yeah, that was like a long time ago.
I don't remember that part, but I do remember the Atari one.
Yeah,
came out in like '78. It's interesting. I think it's say 78/79. They're not sure exactly when that came out. It just shows how pre-internet, history is a little difficult to document. But and I believe the second superhero video game that came out was Spider-Man, also on Atari, 1982, 1982 or 3 or something like that.
It might have looked like what's that game? God, the name escapes me. When you're swinging from vine.
Pitfall.
Yeah, Pitfall.
Pitfall Harry.
Yeah. So maybe was a Spider-Man like the Pitfall game? Like,
yeah. It's funny. If only the swinging worked as well as Pitfall. That's the problem. Was the controls were impossible to control. It's kind of funny. You can go on YouTube and watch Let's Play videos of that, and you can see it was like Atari games. The Superman game was actually a cool game. Now people criticize it, but for that era, that was really impressive. It was an adventure game. You had to go through Metropolis and different screens, and you had to. It wasn't, as action based, but you went into phone booths and would change into Superman, and then once you're Superman, you could fly across the screens. A lot of cool stuff. But the Spider-Man one was a one-trick pony. You're basically trying to climb to the top of the tower, the building, and if you get to the top, you beat the Green Goblin, who's flying around and harassing you or whatever. But it was very difficult to control. But it didn't matter. For me as a kid, the fact that there was Superman and Spider-Man video games, I thought was the coolest thing ever. So I've had a lifelong appreciation for that. And really wasn't until 2000 that the games started getting really good. There was definitely some decent side scrollers in the 90s, but a lot of bad adaptations.
Maybe it was an arcade game that I played. Superman.
Oh, now that makes sense. Yeah. And now you're thinking about the different colored costume makes sense because the reason why is because it was a co-op based game, but the characters were still Superman, so you had to differentiate them, and so they gave one of them this generic red or costume or something like that. It looked really weird.
That's what it was.
It's funny, if they had a little bit more forethought. Why not make one of them Wonder Woman? Why not make one of them Power Girl? Why not make one of them Martian Manhunter? You could actually find another totally different character that has those types of powers and go with it. So, that's hilarious. Yeah, that was like late 80s, maybe even early 90s. But I think it was an arcade game, so it could have been late 80s because, arcade
But I could have sworn I played it on another home console. But
well, a lot of those arcades were ported eventually to home consoles. Might have been a few years later, though. I actually have fond memories of my Sega Genesis Captain America and the Avengers game, which was also a port of a popular arcade version, Captain America and the Avengers. And of course, most people are aware of the legendary X-Men, the multi-screen X-Men early 90s arcade game. I think that was, well, I think it came out before the show, so that would have been like 89, 91, somewhere right around there
It was
too.
like Children of the Atom or something? Or...
No, Children of the Atom, that's Capcom, right?
Yeah. Okay.
No, this is before that. No, this is a beat 'em up, not a fighting game. A beat 'em up. Like it was kind of like yours.
Oh, so like
side scrolling, but it was more
like
the,
Double Dragon.
Yes.
Okay.
Or the Teenage Mutant Ninja
Okay.
Turtles or the Simpsons ones.
Yeah.
Those, same thing. They had, a big wide screen, 2 or 3 screens wide or whatever. You had 4 or 6 different, but you could be, there's Dazzler, Colossus, Cyclops, Wolverine. It was really stupid. It had one really fatal drawback, which was using your powers. And it's funny, this has popped up in a lot of superhero video games over history. Using your powers diminishes your health. So it's like awesome to use your powers in that game, but it's like if you have unlimited quarters,
Cool. All right, let's go to offsite parties and events.
I'll probably really talk about what you're wanting to do as the experience. A lot of things you could really experience during Comic-Con. Mm-hmm. Is on the outside events.
You want to do it, Alex?
Yeah, we can start off with there's one that kind of already started is the Leica Studios. They got a storefront in the Gas Lab district. I think it was the address is 520 Fifth Avenue, and they have some of the original puppets. They have some merchandise out there, and they have a little tour of the exhibit and just explaining some of the stuff they have on display.
What kind of projects are they involved with?
They did Paranorman, Kubo and Two Strings, Coraline, and Box Trolls.
Coraline, of course, from a Neil Gaiman property. I think it was a novel, not a comic. Is that right?
I think so. Yeah.
And I was really disappointed. Kubo looked very cool. Obviously, I've got a vested interest in dramatic animation, not just comedic, which is a very rare thing in animation industry. And Kubo did look very, and I'm not saying it can't have comedy in it, but if it's, and sometimes there is a good mix, like the Disney Tarzan, had a decent amount of dramatics, but I'm, no talking bunnies and stuff like that is what I'm getting at. And Kubo was a pretty heroic looking flick. I didn't get a chance to see it, but it certainly did not do well in America. So it's good to hear that the studio is still alive and well. I was worried that might, have an issue, but then again, I don't know how their financial arrangements are worked, and if they had, I believe the film did do good internationally. So if they hadn't sold away all the rights internationally, that still might have been a winner for them. I don't know. I know in America it wasn't, so that was a little bit of a disappointment. But yeah, that's a very interesting studio to keep an eye on.
Yeah. Well, so I don't know if he's a CEO or a founder. His dad's Phil Knight from Nike, so he has a backing.
Right. I don't know if you can say founder, though, because I believe, and this is a little obscure, but I believe there's a behind-the-scenes story about how that studio, that was originally the Will Vinton studio, and have you ever heard that name? It's a famous name from stop frame claymation. I think he invented the term claymation.
Oh, okay.
Well, I think they came in and invested in it and then ended up kicking him out and taking over the thing and rebranding it to Leica. So there might be some interesting backstory there you want to check into. But regardless of how it came about, I'm a big proponent of animation, and they do still stop frame animation, right? Not just the computer animation. So
it's all stop frame. They don't. Yeah.
I thought that, but I wasn't sure. And especially since I hadn't seen Kubo, it was just so striking. It's funny because
looks like it's computer animation, but
yeah.
I was amazed.
Nice. It's nice to see someone still working with that old craft.
Cool. I guess we'll start off with Wednesday. You guys like to drink beer?
I do.
Well, they got something called HopCon going on at Stone Brewery.
Oh, I thought that was for the Not So Fresh podcast. I thought that's not Hip Hop Con.
No,
Oh, okay.
that'd be kind of cool. Beer
must have
and
been a
hip,
mistake.
beer and hip hop,
There
man.
you
We'll
go.
start a new thing with them.
That would be called Hip Hops Con.
Hip hops. There you go. So yeah, it's gonna be at Liberty Station, the Stone Brewery. And if you want to look at ticket prices, just go to brownpapertickets.com. Looks like they have a few prices for tickets: $40 and $90. I guess there's a range there. They say $40 is the price for designated drivers.
Oh yeah. Okay. Sure.
I mean, that'd be pretty cool to check out, but our schedule's just so busy that night.
Yeah, it's a tough time.
Yeah, because we will be at Game of Bloggers Season 3, Tony Kim's event, Crazy for Comic Con, from 9 to 12 p.m. Preview night Wednesday. It's going to be at House of Blues. So, yeah, we're still looking forward to connecting with some of the content creators around the country. We got Nerd Foo, Nerdophiles, Nerdy Girly, Superheroes XYZ, Hot Nerd Girl, Under the Capes, a whole slew of people we just want to reconnect with. Of course, Englishmen in San Diego, Lissa, and friends of CC. So we're so looking forward to seeing everybody once again. Thursday, there's actually a few art shows that are happening throughout Comic-Con week. This one is going to be Thumbprint Gallery. It's Heroes, Villains, Monsters, and Robots. It's Thursday night from 5 to 8, and it looks like it's going to be at this place called Art Hookah Lounge. It's on 9236 Avenue in San Diego. Yeah, we always try to support Thumbprint Gallery whenever we can. And then the next event, Friday, there's a few events that we want to check out, or we're interested in checking out. For sure, we're going to check out Black Heroes Matter, the flash mob that they have. They had one last year. This is going to be the second time they're going to do it.
So what is that? A cosplay? So they're supposed to dress up as like actual black comic characters, like Black Lightning or something, Black Panther, and that type of stuff.
I mean, I'm sure that's cool too. But basically, there's a guy named Urias. He started this movement last year. He made these shirts called Black Heroes Matter, and I guess they had a little flash mob last year in front of the. Let me see the location here. It's gonna be the same location they did last year. It's gonna be at
The staircase between.
the grand staircase right after the con floor closes on Friday. So, and right after that, I guess we'll go a little bit later. We're gonna have an actual podcast interview with Urias. So that's gonna be pretty interesting to check out. A friend of mine told me about this little event at the Japanese Friendship Garden in Balboa Park. They're having a Japanese pop culture party. It's called Yokai Amatsuri. Excuse me. That's from 7:30 to 11:30. I guess you can be celebrating Japanese pop culture. For more information, you can check out the website www.niwa.org. Then Saturday, there's a Cancer Gets Lost meetup at the San Diego Downtown Library. I think Cancer Gets Lost, what they do is they take donations and they sort of auction stuff off, and the proceeds go to various sort of cancer, organizations. So I want to check that out. They have the Wildstorm 25th anniversary at Liberty Station.
At the San Diego Comic Art Gallery.
Yeah, we'll try to. I guess we'll try to make that
We'll try
one.
to make
It's going to be tough because we're also going to Tony Kim's other party is to celebrate his clothing line's 1 year anniversary, Hero Within. He's calling it the Red Wedding Party. It's going to be at the House of Blues, just like the same location as Game of Bloggers. So we're looking forward to that one as well. As I mentioned earlier, there's a few art shows that are happening throughout Comic-Con. This next one is going to be at the La Bodega Gallery. It's in Barrio Logan. And they're having a comics versus anime art show. That's going to be Saturday, July 22nd from 5 to 10 p.m. It's free admission. For more information, check out their website. It's labodegagallery.com. That's LABODEGAGALLERY.com. And then there's another art show, Women in Comics, with a tribute to Carrie Fisher. It's going to be from 6 to 10 p.m. It's the Prismatic series. Will be hosting an event to honor women in comics, and we'll have a special tribute to our beloved princess, Carrie Fisher. That's the description from online. And it's going to be at Iron Fist Brewing. That's 1985 National Avenue, suite number 1132. And that's in Barrio Logan as well, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
should be real close by to La Bodega Gallery.
Yeah, there's such a huge growing art community or art movement in Barrio Logan.
It's a short drive from. If you see the bridge, it's in that neighborhood.
Yeah, the
Or-
Coronado Bridge.
Mhm.
And then the next event I'm going to mention, they were guests on our podcast recently. It's a Not So Fresh podcast. They're having an event called The Get Down. It's a 2-on-2 breakdancing battle with a $1,000 grand prize. I guess I better practice. I'm just joking. It's going to be from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. at the Centro Cultural de la Raza in Balboa Park. It's $5 pre-sale or $10 at the door. For more information, check out toughrocking.com. That's TUFFROCKING.com. And on Sunday, we're having the Hall H Show after party dinner at Mapo Korean Barbecue, which is something we do every year. It's a Korean barbecue that we like going to in the Convoy area. It's like where Balboa Park and Claremont Mesa Boulevard is. It's where all the Asian restaurants are. And one reason why we like Mapo is because they're open really late. We can just go there like at 10 o'clock at night and still get something to eat. So, and I enjoy their
Brisket.
their marinated brisket. Yeah. And obviously there's way more off-site events that we're covering here and some good resources that you can check out to get more information on off-site events. Check out crazyforcomiccon.com. Go to his off-sites events page. And also go to the SDCCblog.com, go to their offsites page. Those are two good resources for offsite events.
There's also a follow Twitter account Outside Comic Con.
Oh, yeah, Outside Comic Con.
That's a good one too.
And I guess usually we have an art watch where we talk about people we follow on social media. But since we're going to be seeing them there, we'll just go through a list of people that stood out to us at Artists Alley this year. You want to take it away, Alex?
Yeah, sure. These people we've been following for a while, and some we've just recently met. Let's see, Carl Altstetter. Is that pronounced right? Altstater.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah. Patrick Ballesteros, DD08, 12-year-old artist Ethan Castillo, FF13. He's a Wildstorm alum. Eddie Nunez, art at CC04. Sean Galloway at DD17. If you like My Little Pony, go see Agnes Garboska at GG17. If you're a fan of Transformers, go to see Jin Kim at CC08. Another Deadpool, I think he's Deadpool artist, Scott Koblish. That's II03. San Diego artist who just is part of a group called Accidental Aliens. Scott Lost, FF16. Watercolor artist David Mack, CC19. DC Art Production. A friend who's just on our podcast, Jeffrey Martinez at EE23. If you like The 100, Flash, Arrow, any of those shows, go see Lord Mesa at DD03. Todd Knock, prolific comic artist at II01. If you like the Image comic Descender. Go see Dustin Wynn at CC01. He just won an Eisner last year for that.
Who was the artist you mentioned about the 100?
Lord Mesa.
Is there? Do they do a comic adaptation of that?
No, he's just he's the chibi, like the little cute versions of characters.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
he does those style.
Okay.
And he does Arrow. He does a Flash.
Ah, gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay, kind of like those K-pop thing, or what? Not K-pop, but those little vinyl.
Yeah, cute
pop.
little.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Yeah,
Just
he does
And just a cute little aside, we ran into Lord Mesa at Lolita's
Mexican.
Mexican taco shop at next to the convention center
Last year.
at Comic-Con.
Cool guy. See, Image co-founder Will Portasio, comics legend. Livio Romandelli, he's a Wildstorm alum also at CC16. Norm Ratmund at II02. Brian Tillman, EE16. And Chrissy Zulo at BB17.
And
Check him out.
Yeah, and I think we follow him on social media as well. Jeff Pasquale from Pasquale Productions. He's going to be at Comic-Con sharing a booth with somebody, but I didn't recollect what the booth number is. So
Yeah, it's not an artist alley. He's on the opposite side on the tables over there. And
okay.
I think it's the vendor tables, I think they call it.
Yeah, but if you're going to Comic-Con, look out for Pasquale Productions. He has some awesome watercolor work. Guess what it's time for, guys?
What's that?
Thunder Round.
Thunder round, thunder round.
All right. Well, the first question is, as a newbie going for one day, what do you recommend doing?
Well, first off, if you're only going for one day, you got to spend as much time inside the con as you can. So that's kind of an instance where maybe you do pack lunches instead of planning on going outside the con.
Yep.
Because you're trying to maximize your time. Going outside the con is the way to go for lunch. Usually you don't want to eat from the con food, but that can take an hour or two. Just physically moving outside and getting to the spot you're going to go to is going to take some time and then waiting. So that's one thing I'd suggest there. Going to try to maximize, have things planned. I'd say, though, that conversely, I'd say also, make sure you put a little time away just for exploring. And again, try to go to some of the lesser, the smaller corners of the con, the small press tables, the artist alley, that one back corner where the brown coats always have their booth. I don't know if that's an actual, what they call that section.
Fan tables.
Okay.
Yeah.
That whole area, but anything like that, anytime you could get a chance to just go off the beaten path and find something new. Most people are going there for stuff that they already like. But if you like, X and it's at con, there's probably a lot of other stuff that you can discover. So try and keep yourself open to that type of stuff. That's what I'd say.
Alex?
If you're only going for one day, I'll probably do the opposite of what Jason just said. If you're a big fan of a certain TV show or movie property, plan that out with a group of friends and get some comics ready to get signed or, get a photograph ready to get signed. And just plan. You probably spend a whole day if you're really into one popular, prop.
Do you guys ever
culture
bring
property.
comics to get signed?
I haven't yet.
Rarely. Usually,
I'm like, what's the point? I mean,
Yeah.
what do you? Should I bring like a few long boxes? How would I do that? I mean, it's you never know who you're necessarily going to be able to get an easy autograph from, and how what do you bring? It's like it's funny. The only time I have done it once or twice, and once was I couldn't believe the guy was available, and I'm like, oh, you know what? A couple rows and columns down, I saw a guy selling Avengers comics, and and I saw Kurt Busiek, about a few hundred
Kurt
feet
Busiek.
away. Yeah, I remember that was it. So that's how I did that. Of course, I forgot. I told that story in the last.
You'll have to listen to our podcast with Not So Fresh for the Kurt Busiek story.
Right. Well, when I saw him and that he was signing at some table, and there was only two people in front of him, I immediately thought, and of course now I've got all those comic books already, but they're at home in long boxes, bagged and bordered. So I immediately turned tail and went to this, booth that was selling comics that I had just looked at a little bit ago. Mm-hmm. And I went and I grabbed a couple of the, Kurt Busiek, George Perez ones and got back in line or whatever. And so, but I also, saw that inker, the Tom Palmer, that I love, and especially I just loved his work on the Avengers with Roger Stern, and I forget who the artist was at the time. But anyways, so I was talking to him, and I got to interview with him, and so I knew he was going to be back the next day. So the next day, I actually did bring in a stack of my Daredevil comic books where he had been inking classic Gene Colan art. So. But the whole idea of it is like, it's kind of frustrating because it's like, I mean, I would really have to devote time and thinking to that, figuring out who would be available and plan on bringing comics. And that's weight you got to carry around with you. Mm-hmm. That's not an easy thing, you know? So
but if it's one day, you got to make the most of,
right.
So you might have to sacrifice that, That's why you got to get.
Well,
SDCC
if
fits
it's
so you
only
can
one
carry
day,
those.
then the benefit is, well, that's just one day carrying around those comics.
Exactly.
So maybe I will suffer. Mm-hmm. Or you bring an extra backpack and check it. A lot of people don't, realize that the baggage check area, the coat check, is actually a really, handy thing.
Oh yeah,
it'll cost you a few bucks or whatever to get it in and out.
It's
but
worth a couple
yeah,
bucks,
because I've done that with my camera equipment. I'm like, I can't lug all this crap around, especially back in the day, back before cameras were as small. My camera case was a really sweet camera case, but it was freaking huge, and we had a Canon XL1 with a really killer lens. Wow. And so the whole thing took it was like 2-3 feet long at least. It was just crazy how big that was, and I'd be knocking into people trying to get through aisles with it. And so check that as baggage and go back when you need it. That's great.
Yeah, that's about it for me.
What would I recommend? Well, this is what I would recommend. Since we're all about trying to combine history and art and, I would recommend that I'm going to take a page out of Tony Kim's blog post where he recommended that, interesting enough, it was about what if you could only spend one day at a con. And he recommended, first thing, going to Artist Alley and asking a commission from an artist right off the bat at the beginning of the day. So I thought that was a pretty cool idea. So that's what I would do, what I would recommend. And we mentioned the quick draw and cartoon voices panel. I'd block that off just to, get a good experience in there because you have legends in there. Like I said earlier, you have Sergio Aragonés, you got Scott Shaw, you got, Floyd Norman every once in a while, and you got Mark Evanier.
And you also have sometimes like you might get a Billy West or who's the guy that Tom Kenny, is that his name? SpongeBob. It's Kenny. I know he's done it once or twice too. So sometimes you even get a little bit more of a modern big star that more modern fans are going to recognize. But it's a nice mix. Greg Berger, still very active. He's been big since the 90s, at least in voice acting for cartoons.
Oh yeah. So that one block, quick draw and voice acting, and especially quick draw, just because. I mean, it's like, it's just so random. Anything can happen on that panel, and every so often they'll have, various celebrities come up and ask some of the questions or topics that the artist will start drawing. So it's pretty cool. And then obviously I would spend time, walking in the exhibit hall. There's a lot of exhibitors there. So I would allot at least half the day checking out the exhibitors because, I mean, before you know it, the day will be gone and you won't have time to see anything.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, for me, I think that's what I would do.
The exhibit hall is really direct evidence that you can't and shouldn't really know everything going into it. You have to have, that's why, set aside time for exploration.
Okay, well, it's funny you bring that up. I forgot the first step that I would recommend before actually getting your commission from an artist is actually do some research beforehand. At least some,
Oh, yeah.
you know,
Very important.
yeah, at least a little bit of research just so you can get a feel for everything.
Totally. Planning, as with anything, plan to fail or fail to plan. I agree 100%. However, if you look at the exhibitor list, there's a lot of stuff that, most of it probably, that you won't recognize the company, even if it's like, oh, okay, that's the company that does One Punch Man or whatever. You may not know the publisher if you're not an Uber fan or something like that, or maybe there's a parent company that has multiple publishing imprints that actually rents the booth, and that's what their name is listed under. So there's a lot of reasons why, even with some research, you got to admit that this con is bigger than you and bigger than you can handle, and so there's always going to be some stuff you don't know. And also, you might see something like, if you're looking down an exhibitor and it's like a statue company that you're not familiar with, like Sideshow. We all know Sideshow and love Sideshow, right? But let's say you had a smaller, more obscure one, and you're looking at the exhibitor list. Well, that doesn't mean anything to you, whatever the name is, some obscure name, whatever, you read it, it doesn't mean anything to you. However, when you're walking by that place and you see that bust that they licensed of, a clone trooper or something like that, whatever it is, I mean, you're going to see stuff that's like, if you're a Star Wars fan, you're going to see stuff about Star Wars, not just at the Star Wars booth, but all over the place. So I think it's important. You're right. Planning is critical because this is a beast. It's a monster of an event, of a show. But also leave it open to just kind of be an explorer.
Cool. I guess the next question is, it's 2 days before Comic-Con. You decide you want to cosplay. With the limited time remaining, what do you decide to cosplay as?
Well, with 2 days before, I'll go first because this will be easy. I'm not much of a cosplayer, so I'm not really good at building that stuff. And if it was just me, I would probably go with what I've already got in the closet. And I certainly have my Captain Kirk because I'm decked out with props, the actual kind of decently authentic looking props from the shows, which really kind of sells that. And once or twice I have gone. I think once for Halloween I went as Professor Nobi, which is the character I played in Evil Dead the musical. So a little bit of an obscure character, but of course I had the costume because I play the character. So that was an easy one for me to segue into.
Let's see. For me, I'll probably just do the. I guess since a new Spider-Man movie came out and he got his uniform taken away by Tony Stark's. I just go to Walmart or Target, pick up some sweatpants, sweatshirts, and make a Spider-Man costume.
That's cool.
Go to the toy department, find a mask.
That's a great idea.
As for me, I'm started growing out my beard, and I already have some gray, so it'd be easy enough just to be Old Man Logan.
Nice. You know what would be hilarious? To go as Iron Man, but Iron Man from the movies. Now I don't mean his costume design from the movies. I mean like the guy that acts as him. So a mocap suit. Wouldn't that be hilarious? A guy walking around in this mocap suit. He's got dots on his face, and you're like, "What's that all about?" Oh, I'm Iron Man, or something. I'm the Vision.
It could be anybody.
Yeah, right.
All right, that was easy. The next question is, what top 3 places in San Diego do you recommend eating at? And I guess we'll sort of divide it into 2 categories, around Gaslamp and outside Gaslamp.
Well, you know, if you're coming in from out of town, you might be interested in a classic burger joint called Hodad's. It's a little bit removed from the con, so that can be a good way. It's on Broadway, so it's like, I don't know, it's
10th?
at least
Is it 10th Street?
10th and Broadway. Exactly. Because the theater I played Evil Dead in was the 10th Avenue Theater, just
Okay.
around the corner.
Yeah.
In fact, when we did that show, I had a regular thing during rehearsals where I would be driving home from work and I'd just go straight downtown. And once I got to about the 8, I would pull up my phone and I had Hodad's programmed in my phone, and I'd call up Hodad's and order up a burger for pickup. I'd get there, I'd park, I'd walk into Hodad's, grab the burger, walk right out and walk into the theater. Yeah. But that's it's a very classic burger place. It got a little bit of fame, of course, from appearing on diners, drive-ins, and dives.
Oh, yeah, you're right. I remember that.
Which is the Fieri show, right?
I think
Guy
he
Fieri.
rated it. I think he ranked it as a top burger in the U.S.
Yeah, they
When
actually developed a Fieri burger. They don't call it that. They say
Guido burger.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. A pastrami.
Pastrami.
Yeah, pastrami on a burger or whatever. But they say in the description the Guido burger is inspired by Guy Fieri or whatever. That's always worthwhile, especially if you're coming in from out of town or maybe if you're coming in from Santine, you don't get a chance to go to the OB Hodad's. That's always a good spot. There's a couple, you know, good or decent little pizza joints on like right around 5th through 7th, that where you can just go and just get a slice for a couple bucks. It's quick, it's easy, it's cheap. I've done that where I'm like, you know, I wanted to get in and out for pretty cheap, and I needed to get in and out timing wise pretty quick because I need to get back to the con for a panel or something. You know, one of those New York style slices of pizza is awesome. That'll fill you up. So another little bit nicer pizza place that I've always liked is Ciro's. And Ciro's gets taken over every year. I assume it's the same this year by Cartoon Network. So if you're partial to Cartoon Network shows, that's a pretty good place. They serve beer there, so you can you can have the whole family in there if need be. Or actually, you know what? They might stop serving beer there during Cartoon Network. I forgot about that. But they also have a really good.
Well, they'll serve beer during the Adult Swim. Segment.
Yeah. Does it after 5? Does it turn into Adult Swim or something? Yeah, they also have a good Philly cheesesteak sandwich there. Nice. So I'm a big fan of that place. Yeah,
that's on Market between 5th and 6th.
Exactly. You've been there?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. The Field, if it's not too busy, is a really good spot for beer. As well as Irish food. The food's there is good as well. It's a very, very authentic Irish place. I think it's next to the Blarney Stone, which is also
Irish.
Yeah,
that's on 5th Avenue too, right?
Yeah. And a little bit higher end Irish pub, a little bit nicer of a place. Maybe, you know, to me, I think the more authentic is the more divey ones. But is Dublin Square, and that's on 4th. Then that must be on 4th because I know it's one west of where the Field is, so it's 4th and maybe a block south of Market or so. That's a really good spot. Yeah, it's good. Dick's is gone. This is gonna be the first con without Dick's, right?
I was walking downtown. I was like, for lease. I go, whoa, Dick's is gone.
Yeah, Dick's Last Resort, a very famous, iconic San Diego spot. Is that a chain? Do they have them nationally or out of the state or whatever?
Think so. I think I might have seen one other one, I believe, but I don't think they have.
Yeah, I thought they had at least more than one in San Diego County or whatever. But that's a staple, especially for Comic-Con. Like, I think a lot of they could fit a lot of people. You can get in there and get it in and out fairly decently because it's a little bit more of a casual dining or whatever. But that's interesting. They're gone now.
Yeah, good choices. See, mine would be Brian's 24.
Oh, sure, the breakfast place, right? Breakfast and lunch spot.
Good size servings, open 24 hours. So if you're coming late from panels and exhibits from Comic-Con, it's a good place to go. Yeah, real good food. Let's see, another one. I was gonna say Hodad's too. That was one of my choices. Real popular.
Jason, you bastard, stole his.
But let's see. Another one is a new place called Alpha Pizza. It's put together by a nonprofit organization that deals with the homeless called Alpha Project, and they had an idea of opening up a place where a chance for the homeless to transition back into society and give them a job and give them just to get back to work. So that's in the East Village area. Forgot, I think it's like 13th or 14th, 15th Street, somewhere around there. I think around Market Street, I believe. It's called Alpha Pizza.
Cool. I guess for me, some three places that I think that are pretty cool to go to that are around the convention center. It's one of my favorite pizza places. It's Basic. I love their pizza over there. It's also a place where Thumbprint Gallery usually has a lot of their art shows.
Yeah, I've been to a couple art shows there. Very cool.
Yeah, so shout out to Thumbprint Gallery and Basic because I love your pizza. And they have a pretty good cider too. The pineapple cider is what we tried over there, right? At one time?
Yeah.
We mentioned Lolita's earlier.
Yeah, where is that?
It's right next to
I've never heard of it.
like Tilted Kilt.
In Petco Park.
Yeah.
I think on 10th.
Oh,
Yeah, at the end of 10th.
kind of like in that
Yeah.
the Petco
Yeah,
kind of
real
complex,
like a block
little
away
bit,
from the
or-
library.
Interesting.
Yeah. Well, yeah, if you
How
know,
do you describe it? Is it kind of like a higher end or
no,
divey or what?
no. They have other locations of Lolitas and other less
You have 5
fancy
locations
places.
throughout
Yeah,
San Diego.
but
Just a regular taco joint.
yeah, and it's a good representation of San Diego Mexican food, in my opinion. I mean, you don't get the fancy carne asada burritos, the Mission style. It's like your standard carne asada burritos that we grew up in South San Diego. You just get your carne asada, you get your pico de gallo, you got your guacamole. That's it. That's all what you need in a carne asada burrito. So for out of towners wanting to get like a good solid starting point for what a carne asada burrito is, I'd recommend Olitas. Plus, it's close by, so it's a good spot for food. It gets busy though. So, and the last one is Bubs. It's kind of cool. I love their tater tots over there, and it's like an open air establishment, so it's sort of open on all sides, and it's a good spot for people watching too.
Yeah.
And just a little bit outside of Gaslamp, you may need a Uber or definitely need to drive to probably. Is Extraordinary Desserts. It's a good place for not only desserts, but they also have like sandwiches and salads. If you can, try to make it out to Point Loma Seafood. They have a scallop sandwich that's just to die for. It's one of my most favorite things to eat. I usually treat myself to a scallop sandwich on my birthday every year. So I recommend checking out Point Loma Seafood. And if you guys love Korean barbecue, obviously you'll have to go out of downtown for that. Usually in the Convoy area, which is Claremont Mesa and Balboa Avenue. That's where all the Asian restaurants are. But we mentioned earlier Mapo. It's Korean barbecue. They're open pretty late, and there's a whole slew of like other pretty cool Asian establishments in the Convoy area. You just need to just go there, and hopefully you get lucky with parking and just walk around and explore. You'll find something because there's that's where I think, in my opinion, some of the best food in San Diego is.
Check out Joseon. That's my favorite.
Yeah, Joseon. Joseon is a little
Favorite Korean
place. Yeah,
Not just barbecue, but just soups or dishes from Korea.
Yeah.
Good one.
The banchan is really cool.
Oh, yeah,
I think
real
they
good.
have the best kimchi that I've ever tasted. So, next question is: we're celebrating Jack Kirby's 100th birthday this year. If he was still alive, what would you ask him, Jason?
Well, it's tough, but I might have mentioned this the first time you guys had me on, but I'm a huge Fantastic Four fan. One of the things I always like just unique superpowers, and that's one of the things I loved about the Fantastic Four. was a little bit stranger powers, the thing, that's kind of like not just strength, but the fact that he turned into the Rock, and even Mr. Fantastic stretching is just kind of a weird. It's not the most like coolest or most powerful, thing or whatever. But
Kind
it's
of
just,
cartoony.
yeah, it's strange. It's weird, and it's like you actually have to think a lot as far as how would you even use that in a fight. It's not like I know how I would use strength in a fight. You just hit some guy. With it requires a lot more forethought and so I became a huge fan of the show. And one of the things that I think is a sad moment in history is that Kirby never lived to see his 1994 Fantastic Four cartoon. And I know there's a lot of issues over the history about some of the comic creators aren't really too thrilled about the adaptations because they don't always get the credit or compensation for it. But let's put that aside. That's a separate issue. I'm a student of the adaptation process, and so I also discuss and analyze that. But as far as the adaptation itself, Kirby actually worked on the 70s Fantastic Four, the one with the Herbie the Robot. I'm sure you've heard of that. Yeah, he actually did storyboards for that.
Oh, wow.
And I think character designs. And if you watch the show, you can tell it's got a very strong Kirby art style to it. And Stan Lee was on that. And a lot of those guys wrote the scripts. It's kind of like amazing when you look at it and you're like, how did it, how come it didn't turn out more like the comics? So that's one of the things that I've thought was so sad is the second season of that 94 cartoon. First season was really bad, but the second season was one of the greatest Marvel adaptations. It was just so authentic to the characters. It was so high in quality. It had humor. It had charm. It had great animation. The animation looks a little dated now, especially in certain scenes or episodes where, in a way it was their first season with that animation because they redid everything. But I just thought that the quality and the verisimilitude, that's a good word. I've always stuck to that word with the guy that co-wrote or developed Superman the movie with Richard Donner. Tom Mankiewicz, I think his name is.
Is it Bill Mankowicz's father? Or no?
Who?
Bill?
No, I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. But there are a lot of Mankiewiczes, so it's hard to keep track. But he, in the bonus features to the Superman movies that have come out, I'm sure it's on the new Blu-rays as well, but I got it when the director's cut first hit DVD in the early aughts. There's interviews with him and Donner where they talk about the developing, and he always would say verisimilitude. That was our watchword, the truth of the character. If you get to the truth, then we'll know that we did right on the adaptation. And that cartoon has the verisimilitude of the Fantastic Four. And so I always wished, and he died in 1994, right before the cartoon came out. I don't know if he got any footage of it, but he probably didn't care about it at that point. But I always thought that was just so sad that he didn't live to see his creation, which had been attempted to be done. And of course, we've seen even more attempts to do Fantastic Four that didn't end well. So I look back to that one and I love it. And that would be, what I would say is what my dream would be is to sit down and watch an episode of that with Kirby himself.
That'd be cool.
And, get that recorded and do that commentary track, like they do on the DVDs and everything. That would be awesome.
I guess that reference I said it earlier. I think I said Bill Mankiewicz, but I meant Ben Mankiewicz. And he's
Ben Mankiewicz from
Turner Classic Movies.
Right. It is a film pedigree that guy has.
Actually, Tom Mankiewicz is his cousin.
Okay, yeah. I love it. Yeah, Ben Mankiewicz from Turner Classic Movies. Love that guy. So that would be what I would ask Jack Kirby, definitely.
I think mine would be pretty similar. It's like, how does he feel about the, current movie adaptations from, Marvel Cinematic Universe? And if he would still be willing to, contribute to some of the processes of, the script or be a consultant to the movies and what he would do to it. Yeah. What he would have done different.
I would probably ask him. Well, there's two questions that probably come to mind. I mean, Mike Royer is credited as being Jack Kirby's favorite inker. I'd probably ask him if he thinks that's true. But that was a joke. But my more serious question is, Jack Kirby was there at the first Comic-Con as their, first guest of honor, and he had the foresight to say that Hollywood would make a big impact on future Comic-Cons, and it would be interesting to get his take on, is this what you thought it would be? So yeah, that's something that I'd probably ask him. What's one superpower that would come in handy at San Diego Comic-Con?
I'll take this one first.
Hope you don't take mine.
Well, I thought you were stalling. Why don't you go ahead?
Okay. Able to clone myself.
Good one.
Because there's so many panels, so many, artists, so many booths, and so many exhibits to check out that, I gotta. It's even hard, even with a group of people. It's hard to do coverage of the whole event. So I'll be able to clone myself and go to all the panels I want to go see.
Aaron, why don't you go next?
I'm not
because I've got a couple, and so I'm gonna, in case it's it's something you would have come up with. I want you to go first.
Okay.
Well, I'm not gonna do something so cosmic or something like totally off the wall. I'm gonna do something almost mundane, but something I wish that I could do is not. I wish I could stay awake and not be sleepy. Just I could experience everything 24/7.
Wow.
Just from start to finish.
So Miracle Man, you want to be on drugs. You want to get powers via drugs. Is that
exactly, man? I mean, this is so much experience.
The coffee, not enough coffee.
Too much coffee, man.
Oh shit! We got a link to that.
And his arch enemy, not enough coffee, man.
So yeah, that'd be a sort of regular-ish superpower that I would want.
My first thought was invisibility, because that might help you zip through the crowds. And I thought, well, it doesn't really help you actually avoid the crowd. You still be bumping into people. But I'm like, you're invisible. Screw you, buddy. You bump into someone, they turn around, you're already halfway down the aisle. They can't see you because you're invisible. Flight, the ability to just levitate above that crowd and then, levitate over to the booth that you want to go to.
Take some cool pictures, too.
Right? Yeah. Talk about bird's eye. Who needs that selfie stick? However, if everybody was able to have flight, then you would just have chaos on a 3D level instead of just an XY axis. So that'd only be good if it was one person. And then I came up with it, and you inspired me when you just said cloning, phasing. Kitty Pride, baby. I want to be Kitty Pride because then I can just go the straight line from the booth I'm at to the booth I want to be and just walk through everything and maybe even walk through a couple cool exhibits while I'm...
Yeah, it was a good one. All right, let's go to con tips.
Con tips. All right. I'll start just because I've already mentioned a couple of ours, or a couple of the ones I had on my list here. Stuff like looking out for the smaller, more lesser traveled paths and such. I also mentioned plan for food. That doesn't mean necessarily that you should do X or Y for food, but just have it planned out. If you're going to eat off snacks for lunch, just have that planned so that you don't suddenly realize at lunch, oh crap, or if you're going to go out for lunch, have it planned so you don't realize, oh crap, now we got to quick figure something out within 30 minutes before my next panel starts or whatever. Don't spend the whole time in line. I know that's, no one wants to do that, so it's not like, but I'm just saying, a big part of it is the experience. And you know what? A previous topic we covered was if you only had one day. If you only have one day, I'd still come 2 days. Spend day number 2 outside the con. I famously, I've said this many times and I'll continue to say it. Back in the day, I used to give San Diegans a real hard time when they'd tell me that they've never thought to check out Comic-Con because it's such a pop cultural wonder of the world. Nowadays, they've got to easy out because it's hard to get a ticket. But now I tell them, you still should go. You should experience it. Just don't have to go inside. Just go down and check out everything that you can in the gas lamp, and you probably still won't get all the stuff that you can there. So that, and then, in this podcast, you guys and myself are definitely big on supporting, small artists. And so, I always say stop by Artist Alley. I also say if you see any old guys, check them out. That could be a panel or the Artist Alley. It's becoming less and less. I lament that you see the previous generations in Artist Alley, usually only one or two per con. But it could be a panel as well. We mentioned several times in this podcast the Mike Royer. Mike Royer is, living legend. People sometimes, get a little bit antsy about throwing around terms like that. I think he qualifies. By the way, I don't know, did we discuss it last podcast, the Not So Fresh one that I was on, or that Joe Sinnott, the other top Kirby artist, is still drawing? Not only alive, he still does art. He does the Spider-Man daily strip. By the looks on your faces, I can tell I'm not repeating something I brought up, which is something I want to do. But he was just in a Washington Post or New York Times profile talking about how he's still working, and I was just blown away by that. And I was reminded of it as you guys were talking, as we all were talking about Mike Royer and such, and you mentioned that he's known as Kirby's favorite inker. Well, Sinnott did a lot of Kirby's work on Fantastic Four in those first 100 issues, and he's definitely, if not the top, just barely edged out by Royer. He's brilliant. I love his work. He was one of the first inkers' names that I learned. I mean, that to me, that's a benchmark. Mm-hmm. The first artist I learned, I don't know who the first one was, but the early ones that I learned, I remember that as a graduation process from being casual fan to serious fan. You start to realize, oh, you know what? I noticed that Amazing Spider-Man during June through October, I couldn't get enough of that artwork. But Peter Parker Spider-Man June through October, why didn't I like that one as much? And you start to realize that, well, that's because there's craftsmen involved in these, and the ones that are better craftsmen typically craft better stories and artwork. And so when that's an important step of someone from becoming, pardon the expression, but from becoming a child to becoming an adult or a mature person, at least as far as, in how they consume their literature and everything. You start to realize that there's things behind things, and there's meaning behind things, and that there's importance behind things. And it's not just, that was great when I went to that movie, for 2 hours, and that's just what it is, and had a good time and ate popcorn. No, there's some literary meaning to these things. There's people that have put this artwork together into this package that you just experienced it on.
Cool. Alex?
Oh, let's see. Con tips, plan, research. I guess depends. Part of planning, one thing is try to estimate how popular the panel or person or actor you want to see, because of course the more popular one is going to have longer lines. So
especially if you're this is for newbies, right?
Anybody, I guess.
Okay, because I know at one point we were talking about, and you're right, this is more of a general thing, but especially for newbies, a lot of times people, I remember this, I believe, when Twilight came out, that brought a whole new demo to the Comic-Con, and like Housewives. But seriously, it brought a new demo, a lot of people that would never have come before, and And I think a lot of them were experiencing a little shock. Some of them were okay because that's all they were there for was Twilight. So when they found out that they had to camp out, to get into the panel to see Edward Pattinson and what's her face, that they didn't bother him. But a lot of them were like, this Comic-Con thing sucks. You got to stand in line for all the time. Well, no, you don't. Just when you follow just whatever little bell and whistle is coming off in current mainstream culture, then yeah, it's a little tougher.
Yeah. Yeah. So planning. If you're going to get some autographs or buy any type of art, try to bring your own box or containers, bags and boards, because it might be cheaper. It might be cheaper at your local comic book shop, and you might have a hard time locating a booth that's selling those items. So bring containers to package your artwork in. One thing I recommend is, like, if you're gonna stay a couple days and do a lot of walking, bring a golf ball or tennis ball. So when you go to your hotel room at night, bust out your golf ball, tennis ball, and roll your feet on them and massage.
Wow.
That's what I do also when I'm at panels, is that, like, the chairs have a bar across the back of the chair. And I take off my shoes and rub my foot on the back of the bar on the chair, and it kind of, leave some of the, get your blood circulating on your feet.
That's an interesting,
yeah.
I never would have thought of that. You should have seen, or I can only imagine what the look on my face was when you said golf ball and tennis ball. I'm like, where is he going with this? That's interesting. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so that's it. Yeah, it's just, massage your feet during the panel or, back in your hotel room.
Those are all pretty good.
Like it.
Since you said research, that was one of mine. Obviously, that's a no-brainer. But so I'm going to take that one off my list, and I'm going to say, if you can, I'm going to assume that you're a party animal. You like to enjoy your after-con libation. So I'm going to suggest you eat a lot of bananas and guacamole if you can, because that potassium will help alleviate any potential hangovers you may have the next day.
Mm-hmm.
So use that in conjunction with staying hydrated as well. The second one will be, this is a pet peeve of mine. Don't text or apply those Instagram filters to your selfie while you are walking. Move the fuck out of the way, and at least go somewhere and let other people who are trying to get through, let them have the right of way. Third one
How
is,
about just in general, if you need to stop, to step out of the main walkway,
Exactly.
right.
or the main, even though if the whole thing's a walkway, like an aisle, it's just step towards a little bit where there's a wall or there's people, so you're leaving that open. Yeah, sorry.
Or even
Pet
just
peeve.
waiting for somebody, or you run into a friend, people just stop in the middle of a walk, step aside, and that traffic flow.
I mean, you might be able to get away with that at WonderCon or some of the smaller cons, but definitely not at San Diego Comic-Con.
It's so common though, even at just, and it's it's one thing if they see people, but a lot of times they'll just see something. You'll be going through an aisle and you'll be like, oh, this is great, I'm making great time. You're behind, you got a little trail. There's a couple people behind you, there's a couple people ahead of you, but also the couple people ahead of you are like, oh, look at that, and they just stop, and it's like, oh, if you just would have taken a small step to your right when you did that, this whole train behind you could have kept going.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, pet peeve.
Carry cash always.
Oh, good idea.
Just in case, you never know. Carry snacks always.
Yep.
Two things that I like. They're made by the same company. It's these nutrition bars. They're made by Nugo, Nugo. It's the dark chocolate mint and the dark chocolate coconut. Those are mainstays when I'm at cons. And the last one is, be vigilant. See something, say something. There's a potential for a lot of things to go wrong at a con, and you're there with your tribe, and you need to look out for one another. So if you see something suspicious, tell somebody. Say something. So those are my tips.
How about amp up your awareness when you leave the con and get to roads? It's tough because so much of it is just feels like you can wander and roam anywhere, and you can because they kind of closed down some of the gas lamp. But let's remember someone was killed a couple of years ago in a crossing a street, struck by an automobile, and just a reminder that kind of stuff can happen just about any time. So be careful out there.
Yeah.
Another thing is, I forgot to say is, I think is a basic one too is portable charger. Sometimes they won't let you plug it in the panel rooms, or all the ones in the lobby might be taken up. So being a portable charger, so you could probably find some at office supply stores for. I think I got some for $5.
Yep.
Which is good for like one charge, and it should last you through the day.
I guess if we're going back to basics, wear good shoes. And don't forget to bring sunscreen.
Yeah. A lot of people don't think about that.
Yeah.
Especially, gosh, those poor people, those poor not planning people that come for those types of Twilights or whatever Harry Potters that are going to be anything Hall H, the Hall H, not the podcast Hall H, where you're going to be in line outside.
Yeah.
A lot of that line's going to be not under tents, and you can fry yourself there.
For sure. I guess we can sort of segue into our podcasting schedule at San Diego Comic-Con. I think on Wednesday, right before this podcast, we got in touch with a name we mentioned earlier, Stefan Frank, the creator of the comic book Silver. He has agreed to be on the podcast. We're going to discuss his Kickstarter campaign for Volume 3 of his book. We're going to do it right before preview night that afternoon. So looking forward to that. On Friday, Uraeus, the founder of Black Heroes Matter, after the flash mob, we will have him on the podcast. So that's going to be fun. We met him last year. He went to our offsite event,
Artists Assemble?
Yeah, Artists Assemble. And that was fun. And then on Saturday, we're trying to set up a time to talk to Danielle from angstynerd.com. So hopefully we get a chance to talk to her. On Sunday, that's going to be a busy day. We have Bobby Rubio and Keithan Jones on the podcast. Hopefully Sunday will be slow enough so that they can take time from their fans to talk to us for a little bit. And then at the end of the day, we're going to talk to a few people on a special SDCC Fit podcast. We're going to have Jeff Mueller from thejurd.com. We have Tim Ludi from underthecapes.com, Dr. Denise Morales from psychologeek.com, Leonard Sultana from An Englishman in San Diego, and hopefully we'll get a chance to have Alyssa Franks on there as well, friends of cc.com. So it'd be cool to have a SDCC Fit podcast at the end of San Diego Comic-Con to sort of see how being SDCC Fit has helped them have a better Comic-Con experience. And then hopefully there's some additional people that I want to get on the podcast. Karma from Second Union. And there's a few other people who are going to be attending. It'd be kind of cool to get their take. And there's a few first-timers and seasoned veterans. So, yeah, we'll be having some podcasts at Comic-Con. Flash forward. I want to talk about Jason's project that he's been working on.
Yeah, so just launched Hero Journalism's YouTube channel about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, and got a lot of stuff planned. A lot of work ahead, but a lot of stuff planned. Some really interesting. One of the things is you can find anything online and on YouTube, and you can find a lot of geek-related material. So I know that going in that it's a crowded market, but I do believe that a good chunk of our content is going to have a unique focus to it. even if it's only the fact that I believe certain things we see that average, more mainstream culture doesn't see, especially if it's stuff that has a historical bent to it, because I think, anytime you're talking about a topic that goes back in history, that information is becomes more scarce. So it's always going to be a little bit more challenging. And one of the things that where I think that was related was we are now currently getting ready to launch. In fact, I think it will be actually on the channel by the time that this podcast hits airwaves. So you can go to Hero Journalism and check it out. We just finished a pretty extensive remembrance, celebration, and eulogy for Joan Lee, wife of Stan Lee, for 70 years, if you can believe that. They had their 70th anniversary in December.
That's incredible.
2016. Yeah. So, anyways, a lot of people have covered that, but one of the things is, there's just a little bit of an inside story there. Sometimes some organizations have mentioned it cursorily, but she got the rare chance for a wife of that era, which was usually not, didn't have the opportunities to have her own creative career. And she was a model and aspiring actress when she met Stan Lee, put all that aside to raise a family, as you did back then. And unlike most people, she had the rare opportunity to not only share in her husband's success and help him, build that success, but also to herself become a Marvel creative artist. Some people do know a little bit of this. She did appear in some Marvel productions, doing some voice acting and such, but there's a little bit more of a story to it, and especially if you're a Marvel and a cartoon and a superhero fan and interested in that history, it deserves a little bit of a closer look. And so we decided that even though lots of people are going to be talking about her passing and honoring her memory, and in some cases do that better than us, what we're doing is we're doing the part that we do better than them, which is to tie the context into comic and superhero and cartoon history. And so you're going to get a lot more of a flavor and taste for how that came about, that she was offered these amazing opportunities and what came about from it, and just get a better sense of those contributions that she did, which I think is important, because creator wives, especially comic book wives of that era, were long suffering. We always talk about how the comic creators were long suffering because they never got fair treatment, either in credit or in payment or in benefits or in pension or in health insurance or whatever. So the wives don't get the consideration. And so I just think it's kind of an important topic. And so we decided to halt our production on our other videos that we had planned, which was kind of a bummer, because I would have my second video out beforehand, before this, had I not done this. But I decided that because it was timely and because it was important, I thought that it was important to do this. And so it turned out to be a little bit more painstaking in research than I thought it was going to be. So the video came out a little bit later than I had hoped, but it's online now, and you can find it at herojournalism.com or on Facebook at Facebook/herojournalism, or you can check out my Twitter at 4Cade. I hope that people check it out, because I think it's an interesting tribute to the woman, and also an interesting little fleshing out of our pop cultural history.
Awesome. Well, look forward to viewing it, and thanks a lot for doing what you do, man.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. And I'll just quickly add, we've got a lot of follow-up content planned. We probably would have some of that out coming a little bit more quickly as well. But of course, Comic-Con week is going to slow things down for me. It's funny. through this podcast, I realized it's kind of the opposite for you. Comic-Con is speeding things up for you because you're going to be doing like 4 podcasts at the con. I don't know if they're all coming out right away. I assume they'll stagger them out probably, right? But that is allowing you to complete a lot of material very quickly. For me, it's the opposite. I'm going to have less time to work on my material because I'll be at con or doing con or writing about con.
Right.
But B, I'm going to have to go home and then, create material from the footage and interviews that I've gotten. That's going to take weeks and months, and some of it won't even be done until later on because it's not as timely, and I need to keep up with the timely stuff. So it's a little bit the opposite for me, but I still have other material that I'm going to be finishing up now that we've got the Joan Lee Remembrance taken care of. I'm getting back to some things that I already had partially completed. So we've got coming up a remembrance of the very first time that Spider-Man cartoon footage was aired in the 1990s, which went on to become probably the definitive cartoon version of the character. We're also going to be taking some interesting analysis videos on some upcoming movies. We did our first video on the Blade Runner trailer, and actually kind of interested a little bit in the Murder on the Orient Express project that just was kind of announced and had its first teaser come out recently. So we're going to be taking a look at that, and we've got a lot of other stuff, a lot of superhero stuff related, cartoon related stuff, and then cinema as well. So Blade Runner is something we're going to be going back to quite a bit till that movie comes out in October.
Yeah. Is he or isn't he a replicant?
The answer is clear. Unless you're asking people online, then it's not so clear.
Well, obviously his story is unfinished,
Yes.
Alex, what's next for the Hall H show?
Hall H show. What's going on?
Obviously, we're gonna be busy at San Diego Comic-Con, and
I haven't looked past Comic-Con yet.
I know, I feel you. So
that's what I'm talking about. It's like there's a big black hole in your July schedule. It's called Comic-Con. It's like it's too.
Yeah. Then after that, it's just getting everything prepped.
Right.
Do all the post work on the podcast and get more recap blog entries ready. So it's gonna be. There's work to be done after Comic-Con.
Right.
Cool. Well, I am effing pumped for next week. For this week. Or whenever you listen to this podcast, it'll be the week of Comic-Con.
Yes.
So be safe wherever you guys are coming from. And we look forward to seeing as many of you as possible at Comic-Con. Please come up to us and say hi. And have fun. I mean, this is Nirvana, man. I mean, just go out there and don't be afraid to engage with people. I mean, you're with your own tribe, so let's have fun, be safe, and let's get drunk. I'm just joking.
Nice.
Right.
Excelsior.
All right, guys. Peace. Cheers. Talk to you later.
Bye now.
Thank you for listening to the Hall H Show. Our mission is to put the mainstream Hall H spotlight on artists, writers, and other creatives. We especially love emerging talent and people we think deserve more exposure. We all love attending conventions, so please make it a point to visit Artist Alley at all the conventions you plan on going to this year. Show them some love, especially this week at San Diego Comic-Con. Speaking of SDCC, we just found out after we had recorded the podcast that a recent guest, Jeff Martinez, a digital production artist at DC Comics, will be having a meet and greet event on Thursday night at 8 p.m. It will take place at North Park Beer Company. Check out their events page at northparkbeerco.com for more information. Also, please visit Jeff in Artist Alley at table EE23 and bring him some chocolate. If you're listening to us on Google Play, iTunes, or Stitcher, we would appreciate a rating and a comment. We're always looking for interesting guests to have on the show, so If you have any suggestions, please reach out to us on social media using the hashtag HallHShow. Are you an artist wanting to promote your Kickstarter campaign for an upcoming project? Let us know. Peace, cheers, and safe travels to San Diego Comic-Con.